Test, mic 1.
Good evening and welcome to the Alachua County School Board meeting of Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. Please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we adopt the agenda, I wanted to read an announcement. I feel both sad and honored to share a few words about Barbara Sharp, who is such an important figure in the history of the School Board of Alachua County. Barbara passed away a week ago at the age of 84. When she was elected in 1992, Barbara became the first black female to serve on this school board since Reconstruction. She retired from the board in 2004, but was recruited to run again in 2008. She won that election and served again until 2012. During her tenure on the board, she was honored for her work by organizations including the March of Dimes and the League of Women Voters. Barbara's talents as a leader were also recognized outside Alachua County. She served as president of the Florida School Boards Association, which advocates for public education and students statewide. She was appointed by Governor Lawton Chiles to serve on the board of the statewide Healthy Start program. She also served on the Florida Education Standards Committee. Locally, Barbara worked with many community organizations, including the Gainesville Area Chamber of Commerce, the Central Florida Community Action Agency, and the Alachua County Recreational Task Force. So we do honor Ms. Sharp for the service to our schools and our community. Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Russell, seconded by Ms. Certain. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, I'd like to recognize Ms. Ritter, our Director of CTE, for Cta Month Recognition.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me come this evening. February is CTE month, and we like to celebrate that in a lot of different ways. And this year, we thought the very best way was to recognize 8 of our outstanding CTE students. So these students were nominated by their teacher and come from the various high schools around. Out of over 6,000 CTE students that we have in our districts, we think it's truly an honor to be one of 8 recognized by your teacher. So what I'm going to do is just ask them one by one to come up here. I'm just going to give a brief little quote from their teacher about why they were nominated for this honor. And I'm going to start by asking, is Verda Gordu from Gainesville High School here? I don't know if she's here yet, so I'm going to wait and go back to her, okay? And we will start with Jordan Heitzler from Newberry High School. She was nominated by Patrick Treese. She's in the Academy of Criminal Justice. Jordan has been in the Academy for 4 years and has been an officer in the Academy for 2 years. This year, she is the major, which is second in command, a big responsibility. She was responsible for the big Career Academy Expo that they had, or I'm sorry, the Criminal Justice Expo that they had just about a week ago, which is a very big responsibility. Everything went off without a hitch, and Mr. Treese just said, in addition to maintaining a 4.375 GPA, she's just been an invaluable asset to the Academy. So let's recognize Jordan. Okay, good. Thank you. And next, I would like to call up Davika Kumar from Buchholz High School. Davika is in the Academy of Finance. She was nominated by the director, Michelle Brothers. Davika, these are quotes that I'm taking, word for word quote from their teachers. Davika is always willing to lend a hand. She has helped me this past year in so many ways as far as organizing, planning, and anything else that she has been asked to do with FBLA and the Academy. FBLA is Future Business Leaders of America. It's a leadership organization. She completed the 4 required Academy classes last year, so she really didn't even need to take a finance class this year, but I think she enrolled with Ms. Brothers again so she could help and serve as the District 6 FBLA president. So another great responsibility. Next, we have Winter Minuet. We practiced saying that. We did good, right? Winter is at the Professional Academies Magnet at Lofton High School, and she was nominated by Mark Smith. Winter was a leader in her class starting with her 9th grade year. She was chosen to be an Academy officer in 10th grade because she stood out as an example to other students. She continued leading by example during after-school training, helping plan and lead the training activities. She was chosen to be the ranking officer in the Academy for her senior year, and she was able to meet her high school graduation requirements and dual enroll for EMT at Santa Fe College, while still coming in the mornings to Lofton to be an aide for the Academy Emergency Medical Responder class. Let's recognize Winter. Emma Rowland. Emma is joining us from Santa Fe High School, and she was nominated by Brian Skipper, but I see that Mr. Skipper is here also with Miss Bailey, so I know they both are, would feel the same about Emma. Mr. Skipper actually said, when I think of students who have a real and tangible future in the agriculture industry and will significantly improve it, I think of Emma Rowland. She always presents herself in a professional and respectful manner. Emma is constantly working to better our FFA chapter, her own cattle, and to inspire younger students to get involved with the agriculture industry. She has served the Santa Fe FFA chapter as sentinel, reporter, and this year as president. And Tyler Roberson. Tyler's joining us from Hawthorne High School. He asked me right away, did he have to speak? I already put him on the spot one time and got him on video. So he was nominated by Mike Castles as part of the Academy of Agribusiness at Hawthorne. Tyler has served as vice president and president for the Hawthorne FFA chapter. He is a great person that has really tried to pass his knowledge on to younger students. Anytime someone in our program needs help, Tyler is the first person to offer assistance. Mr. Castles credits Tyler for helping to rebuild the ag program at Hawthorne. And Jeffrey Schwa from Buchholz. Jeffrey was nominated by Terry Hoffer in the Academy of Entrepreneurship. Jeffrey has been an Academy of Entrepreneurship officer the past 2 years and sets a good example for others in the Academy. He puts together the Spirit Spot's gold medal school-based enterprise paper. He's done that 2 years in a row. And this is a 50-page paper that helps the store become recertified each year. Jeffrey has won Employee of the Month several times, an honor voted on by his peers in the school-based enterprise, the Spirit Spot. He volunteers at elementary schools by creating financial literacy lessons, studying them, then teaching them to the students. Let's recognize Jeffrey. Is this Verda? Let's recognize Verda Gordu from Gainesville High School. Gerda was nominated by her teacher Tony Malo from the Digital Multimedia program. And his quote is, Verda is an exemplary digital media student, and no matter what I throw her way, she masters it. I wish I could have more students like Verda because it does not matter what program I challenge my students with, Verda takes the challenge head on and at times ends up showing me a thing or two. She has all 6 certifications, wow, offered in my class, and she is naturally talented with the camera. Let's recognize Verda. Just before I close up, I want to make sure Jason Hevington from Buchholz is not here. I do want to just tell you, so he knows he was recognized. He was nominated by Jessica Campbell, also a digital multimedia program, and her quote is, from the very beginning of his freshman year, Jason has shown an intense passion for design and digital skills, especially video production. After getting experience using camera equipment for small class projects, Jason quickly took his skills to the next level on his own and became the videography director for the Buchholz Theater Group, as well as starting a freelance business using the skills he has learned. He's like a sponge, soaking up the skills he needs to build his own successful career. And let's recognize Jason, even though he's not here. We could recognize hundreds and thousands of students, so I appreciate the time to recognize CTE Month and take a moment to appreciate these outstanding CTE students.
Thank you. Ms. Ritter, if this doesn't make people smile to see these young people and their accomplishments, I'm not sure what could make anyone smile. This is so heartwarming, and we're very proud of these young folks and their parents and their teachers. I'm wondering if it would be okay if we had the certificate recipients come down front and we'll just do a group picture if maybe Ms. Johnson could do that. And board members, if you could stand and scoot in a little bit.
While Ms. Johnson is taking a picture, I failed to say what CTE stands for. So it is Career and Technical Education. I want to make sure people understand. So anything from agriculture to culinary to technology to anything in between, preparing for a career.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ritter. Before we continue, I wanted to let you know that our internet, breaking news, internet is back up. It was off for until now, so that's a good thing. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Edwards to the microphone for a Black History Month proclamation. Okay. Now, if we have anyone standing in the back, we have some open seats up front. That's probably a better choice than standing.
Good evening, Chairman Hyatt, board members, and Dr. Simon, our superintendent. Tonight, I would like to read for you our Black History Month proclamation and ask that you would accept it into our records for tonight. Whereas the history of Black History Month can be traced back to 1926, when Black historian, author, activist, and educator Carter G. Woodson sent out a news release announcing the first Negro History Week for the second week in February. And whereas his idea to honor African Americans and educate students about their achievements was taken up by schools and other organizations across the country, to the point that Carter G. Woodson is now considered the father of Black history. And whereas efforts to expand the week into a longer event continued until President Gerald Ford issued the first presidential proclamation officially recognizing Black History Month in 1976. And whereas Black History Month is now celebrated throughout the nation by K-12 schools, universities, communities, and other entities. And whereas Alachua County's public schools mark Black History Month with a wide variety of activities aimed at raising awareness of the critical role of African Americans in this nation's past, present, and future. And whereas the district is committed to educating students about these issues throughout the school year, not just in February. And whereas in collaboration with the Alachua County African American History Task Force and other partners in the community, the district has developed curricula and learning activities that have earned Alachua County Public Schools recognition as an exemplary district from the Florida African American History Task Force. And whereas the district is committed to continued collaboration with community partners to promote the teaching of African American and African history and culture in our schools, and recognizes the need for an ongoing process of expanding, refining, and implementing an ever-evolving and culturally relevant curriculum in every classroom throughout the district. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Alachua County recognizes February 1st through March the 1st of 2022 as Black History Month in Alachua County Public Schools and reaffirms its commitment to ensuring that students understand and recognize the accomplishments of African Americans, dated this 15th day of February 2022.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edwards. Thank you. I want to remind everyone that we do have a time-certain public hearing at 6:30, but until then, we'll proceed as according to the agenda. Do we have any board member or superintendent announcements? First, Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Chairman Hyatt. I'd like to recognize a student tonight and his name is John Fox IV, and we call him Johnny. He's a 5th grader at High Springs Community School. But I wanted to share that John has high academic skills. Absolutely. If you could see his report card, you would know why I'm saying that. But more importantly, in speaking with him and understanding his desire to have he and his family to travel to Japan, he is studying Japanese language. And this has been going on now for a couple of months, I would say about 5 or 6 months, and it's amazing what he can share with his vocab and his writing and reading. And so I wanted to recognize him tonight. John Fox, I am so proud of you, as well as your classmates at your school and your teachers and administrators. So continue the good work, and we look forward to hearing about your trip once you get back from Japan. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. Ms. Certain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was looking out today and I see all of the folks here, our employees that are here in their red shirts, and I almost thought it was, knowing Valentine's Day was yesterday. There's also American Heart Month, that's this month in February, but want to just extend a thank you to all of our employees that came, thought it not too much after a long day to come and sit through a meeting to speak to the board. I know it's been a heavy lift for you all this year during the pandemic, not just this year, but last year, ever since March 2020. Normal as we know it is no more. So I'd like to extend my thanks to you all now. I know we will hear from you all later, but thank you to our instructional staff as well as our support staff. I know it is a heavy lift. I was at 3 schools last week and heard just the reports of the principal giving to the Department of Education staff that were on site, the vacancies that they have, the challenges in filling subs in classrooms, and when we can't get subs in classrooms, how classes are broken up in between, that sometimes media aides, paras and those are put into classrooms. So this has been a really hard year. I do recognize that as a board member, but I do want to say thank you for your service to our community as well as to the children of Alachua County. We've heard much discussion on the transportation challenges, and all of us up here this morning got an email from this morning from the transportation staff and Mr. Andrews about a no call, no show. So it's not that we are not cognizant or aware of what's going on, but I did just want to take this time to just right now at the beginning of the meeting to thank you all for your service and thank you for coming. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Certain. Do I have any other board members or superintendent announcements?
Mr. Hyatt.
Dr. Simon.
Thank you. So I have a few announcements. First off, I want to congratulate Taylor Gilfillan. He is our Director of Data Analytics. He will be showcasing what we are doing within our district at the Illuminate Education kickoff, their district-wide kickoff. They actually saw our transformation and progress presentation, and we're so impressed by our daily use of data and how we're incorporating this through our Illuminate, and he is the guest to demonstrate what we've been doing. I think this is something for us to be proud of, because we are now being recognized across the country for incorporating data-driven decision-making, and we appreciate what he does for our district. This week, I also am attending the AASA. This is the School Superintendents Association. It'll be in Nashville this year, and the focus is on leading for student-centered, equity-focused education. I'm very excited about continuing my professional development as well as networking with superintendents from across the country. I'm also excited because the U.S. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, will be there as one of the keynote speakers, along with Michael Foulon, who is a renowned scholar in the field of education. I also wanted to let you all know that I've been invited as a speaker for the 2002 National Superintendents Forum in Chicago, Illinois. I'll be presenting a workshop that will showcase some of the works that Mr. Gilfillan is doing, as well as our other approaches to integrate technology into our education. Right now, the title is still loose, but being more innovative and flexible in integrating technology to improve district processes and systems. I will also be moderating a roundtable for superintendents that will focus on student mental health awareness. I have also been honored to be the keynote speaker for the 2002 American Values Dinner. This is hosted by the North Florida Council of the Boy Scouts of America, and this will be in April, and I'm very pleased and happy that I'll have this opportunity to speak with the community. And then lastly, our deadline for submitting for our magnet programs has been extended to this Friday, February 18th at 4 p.m. So parents can complete your magnet application for your child online, or you can get a paper application at the school. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Simon. Okay, next we have citizen input, and we're going to have time probably just for a couple before we have the public hearing. We're going to go, tonight it's going to be 2 minutes per speaker, and Mr. Delaney will be keeping the time. So let's start with Dr. Crystal Tessman.
Good evening, Chair Hyatt, Superintendent Simon, board members. My name is Dr. Crystal Tessman. I'm speaking as the Service Unit Director for the Alachua County Education Association, our employee union. We have called on our members to come share their truths with you tonight in the hopes that you will approve a larger raise than you have proposed. Tonight, I will not share the raise we will ask for, as our proposal will go through the proper collective bargaining channels in the sunshine at the meeting, which will be held in person here and on Zoom on Thursday at 4:45. However, I will provide an introduction of the facts for all those listening. The board has offered a 20-cent per hour raise for education support professionals, ESPs, and approximately 17-cent per hour raise for teachers, which is different depending on experience and is consistently less for veteran teachers, and COVID bonuses of $1,500 for ESPs and $1,750 for instructional members. These numbers are too small, and the inequities among groups is too large. I want to make sure that you all see our members here tonight. Anybody who is here to support us, if you want to raise your hand or stand briefly, that is fine, because some of us are going to have to leave before they get the chance to speak later. Many of us are in red, black, or both, and many are wearing a sticker. Some are coming to the meeting late because they are still working at their work site. Some will leave the meeting early because they have to open schools, transport, and feed our students. Others are logging in virtually on YouTube. Please take note of the number of video calls, phone calls, emails, and letters you get for this meeting. I expect it to be larger than normal. Multiple members, and I want you to hear this clearly, have told us they cannot be here tonight because they have to work at their second job. Our employees should not have to have a second job when they have a full-time position with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tessman. If we could, like to ask that we not have applause. And our last one before we break for the public hearing will be Carmen Ward.
Good evening, Chair Hyatt, Superintendent Simon, and board members. I'm Carmen Ward. I'm the Alachua County Education Association president. And we called on our union to show up, and they have, and we definitely appreciate. I hear so many stories from employees about how they're having a very difficult time surviving with our inflation situation, what it is. And we do definitely need to make progress on salaries. I know that in a recent board meeting or workshop, board members certain asked Mr. Rella what was happening with the funds of all of the vacancies that are occurring this year. And he said, well, that will go to build the fund balance. And I am very much concerned that we are not doing everything we can to address the shortage that we are suffering. And the people in this room, the employees that we appreciate, are shouldering the burden of all of the shortages. The bus drivers, the bus aides, everyone in the school, including the administrators, everyone is shouldering the burden. And they definitely all agree that we need to do everything in our power to make the working conditions and the pay address those shortages so that we do not keep bleeding employees in Alachua County. So I just wanted to encourage you and empower you to listen with an open mind to our counteroffer that is coming on Thursday. And we hope that we continue to make progress working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward, and I do want to remind the public that during our first public comment session, we're going to have time for 6 more people. So if I could, and then of course we'll have a lot of time later in the meeting. I'd like to ask Ms. Turney and Ms. Shannon to come forward and handle our public hearing.
Good evening, Chair Hyatt, board members, Superintendent Simon. My name is Courtney Shannon, and I'm the Certified Legal Intern for the Staff Attorney's Office. We're here for the public hearing that has been scheduled for 6:30 to consider and receive input on the proposed amendments to Policy 5120.01, pardon me, titled School Zone Boundary Descriptions for Spot Rezoning for Idlewild and Metcalf Elementary Schools. The amendments being proposed to this policy are just to the school zone boundaries for Idlewild and Metcalf Elementary Schools. This item was workshopped on January 5th, 2022, and the first reading was held on January 18th, 2022. The second reading will be held on March 1st, 2022. Upon review, we realize that the amendments as written do not make it clear that the new zoning will not begin until the 2022-2023 school year. We are working on clarifying edits that will be distributed in advance of the second reading on March 1st. We ask the board chair to now open up the floor for public comments.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Do we have any comment on the public hearing subject here in the auditorium? Do we have any comment on the phone? Okay, I think we're all good. Thank you.
We ask the board chair that this now concludes public comments.
Thank you. Okay, we're back in our meeting, and let's next, Kim Cook. Is Ms. Cook here? Okay. Yeah, okay, we're going to go find her, yes. And after Ms. Cook will be Amy Barris.
Good evening. My name is Kim Cook. I'm a retired educator here in Alachua County, and I am currently the office manager at the ACA office. And I'm here to discuss the ESSER funds and how disappointed we are with the way the ESSER funds were allocated. ACA had asked for the ESSER funds to be used to relieve working conditions for our employees. And there were many things we had asked. We had asked for aides in classrooms. We had asked for bus monitors. Our employees' working conditions dictate whether or not they stay in their jobs. We are hemorrhaging employees in Alachua County, and it's just very deeply disappointing that the ESSER funds couldn't have been used in a way to alleviate working conditions here in the district. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Barris?
Good evening. My name is Amy Barris, and I'm the band director at Howard Bishop Middle School and a member of the ACEA. I've served all 26 years of my career in the Alachua County Public School System. As last year's Middle School Teacher of the Year finalist, I made remarks that music education is not what I do. It is who I am. It is every fiber of my being, and I can't imagine doing anything else as a career. As educators, we thought last year was difficult teaching high flex and ridiculous yet very necessary amounts of COVID precautions. But I'm here to tell you that this year is 10 times, if not more, harder than last year ever could be. We constantly hear about educators needing to practice self-care. So for once, this educator, who always puts her students first, is going to put herself first for once. Instead of coming to you fighting for funding to pay for instrument repairs or proper storage or even better soundproofing in our beautiful new music suite, which is a different conversation for another day, I come to you fighting for me. Veteran teachers were dealt a huge slap in the face last year when the state of Florida bumped up beginning teacher salaries, where a first-year teacher makes maybe $10,000 a year less than my salary after 26 years. And from what I can see, the current proposal on the table for salary negotiations shows that people with step 0 through 9 get $357, and once again, our veteran teachers who have defied the odds and are still dedicated to our craft only get $238. Now, you could have at least given the veteran teachers a bigger slice of the pie, but we can't blame the state for that one. After taxes, the middle school amount is probably not even worth it, but let me tell you why it is and why every penny counts. I'm single, and my income is the only income that covers my living expenses. Last year, my 11-year-old car died, and I had to get a new one. So now I have household expenses and a car payment, and you might think, Amy, well, that's what most people have to do.
Mr. Chair, we're at 2 minutes.
Okay, could you go ahead and wrap it up, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, bottom line is this. My rent next year, or starting in April, is $2,083 a month. My last paycheck was $2,041.75. Over half of my monthly income is going to cover rent.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next is, I believe, Janae Reichard, and I'm apologize for the mispronunciation. Okay, we'll go to the next. I'm sorry, Ms. Certain, did you? Okay, sure. It's Jane, and is.
I thought that's why I
Okay, Ms. Certain, thank you for pulling that one out.
Good evening. My name is Jana Reichard. Sorry. Thank you for so much for letting me speak. I've had quite a few conversations back and forth with Ms. Certain, which I want to say thank you to Ms. Certain for getting back to me. That means a lot, I really do. I work for transportation. I'm a school bus driver, and we only have 2 minutes, and I could talk for an hour, really. Pay. We need better pay. We have the same problem as that woman who just spoke before me. Only my check's about half of what hers is. Try living off of that. It's not fun. We have single parents. We have a lot of bus drivers, not here, in case you haven't noticed, because they're at second jobs, they're at home with their kids, and they are utterly exhausted. I'm exhausted. My husband's at work right now. My kids are at home fending for themselves. They're older, so it's okay. But it's not, because I should be at home cooking dinner for them. But instead of that, I felt it was super important to come here and speak with you all. I've asked a few questions to a few different people, ACEA members, Ms. Tina Certain. They've explained a few things to me. We're going to have to find money from somewhere, because any solution that we can find for transportation is going to cost money. Anything. It doesn't matter what ideas you come up with. It doesn't matter what you try to do to fix it. It's not a quick fix. We need discipline. We need more drivers. We need to attract drivers with some skills and some experience. We need to stop halving and gypping us on our steps, because a reclassification without your steps is what? Thanks for the reclassification,
Mr. Chair.
but give us our steps.
Mr.
please.
Chair, we're at 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kim Hampton.
Hello, Board. I'm Kim Hampton. I'm on year number 31, 24 with the district, and it's been said tonight already. What I want you to realize is of your facilities, your tech, all the resources you have, your human resources are what's most valuable. Your human resources are what you need to take care of, because without the human resources for our district, what are we? We are nothing. So you have to take care of the people. And I'd like you to collect the data on how many people do need second jobs. I've gotten up at 3 in the morning and delivered the Gainesville Sun as a second job. I've been an Uber driver. I'm fortunate this year I just work in the after-school program of Title I to tutor, so I don't have to leave campus to do my second job this year. And I also want to speak up for paying a living wage, that it should be a minimum $15 an hour for anyone who's on hourly. I'm blessed to be salaried person, and I know the hours that I put in, so I think hourly people, we need to go ahead and go for that $15 minimum wage across the board for our ESPs and bus drivers, because without them, we can't function at all as a district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker before, or for this section of public input is Phil Walton.
Thank you. My name is Phil Welpton, and I work for the school district, and I'm a member of ACEA. Last year, the administration and this board refused raises to all but the 3 lowest ESP pay grades, and those raises were only won through the tenacity of the ACEA bargaining team. The reason given? The money wasn't there for our raises. But when the superintendent's amended reorganization plan was passed, there was plenty of money for new administrative hires and existing managers who received a raise for essentially doing the same job they'd been doing, but their job titles and descriptions were changed. At the November State of the District presentation, there was much praise for ESPs, whose labor was critical in making these new district programs featured at that event possible for this school year. Verbal praise is nice, but a raise is a much better way to express your appreciation for our work. You always find money for administrative personnel, and we know you can give us the money called for by our ACEA bargaining team. We deserve it because we've earned it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welton. And did want to say that GRU is saying that we're experiencing county-wide outages, and they're working on it. But right now, the internet is going up and down, and so that's just and right now, it's currently down. But I know that our folks here do everything they can to get us reconnected, so as soon as it's available, it's going to be available. At this point, I'd like to recognize Naya Vidal, the GHS Student Body President, for a presentation.
Hi, I'm trying to get my USB up because luckily I was the one who needed Google, so I needed the Wi-Fi. But hang on, I'm sorry. Miss Green, would you mind helping me find the flash drive? I think it's this one. Not pulling up anything. It should say no names. Here it is. PowerPoint. You want to try the printable one? That's the PDF one. Just come here. See this part right here? It's fine. It'll animate. Okay. What'd you say? Guys, I don't use this type of computer, so I'm sorry. I think I got it from beginning. Ah, wonderful. Okay. So thank you so much for your patience. So over 1 in 3 youth are still not receiving the mental health services that they need. So hi, my name is Naya Vidal, and I'm here to talk to you about the Alachua County Public School mental health crisis. I want to thank Ms. Tina Certain for inviting me here today. I really, really do appreciate it, and so do the rest of the student body. So today I'm going to be speaking to you about the student perspective. Before I talk about the student perspective, I want to introduce myself and share a little bit about what I've been through in high school and my roles. So for those of you who don't know, I am the Florida Association of Student Council's state president. We are sponsored by FASA, and this has kind of allowed me to share student mental health and try to get students more involved and take more control over their own mental health, and because right now it is at an all-time low, and it is not being handled by people larger than them. So I am also the Gainesville High School founder and president of Women's Empowerment Club this year. I am the Gainesville High School student body president. I am a student rep on some school board committees for mental health and LGBTQ, and also a longtime ACPS student. So this is me, a few pictures. I actually met Ms. Certain and Ms. Russell at the Florida School Board Annual School Board meeting. And this is my student government at a District 2 meeting for FASC. This is my FASC board. This is also my FASC board. So the percentage of high school students who reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness increased by 40%, and that was pre-pandemic. So as you all are aware, and teachers, isolation, online learning, digital dilemma, all of this, financial struggles add so much stress to students. So much. I'm a senior this year, and I feel horrible for my younger sister who has gone through this at a younger age than me. So what do we have to say about it? I have taken many surveys. I have shared with thousands of students around the district, around the state about these issues. So these are, I think I provided you guys with printouts as well of all the student responses that I got. Those are just a few. So oftentimes I feel that students know about mental health, they're just not getting the help they need from their teachers and school system. Rather than giving a presentation, let us know that we matter, we're loved, etc. Show us how mental health issues should be taken care of instead of saying one thing or doing another. Mental health should be a bigger concern within the curriculum. Overall, I just wish schools actually cared about the mental health of their students, as it is evident they do not. And no, I did not write these. I think mental health awareness should not just take place during 1 week or month of the year, but students should have frequent reminders that counselors are available, maybe hang up posters or send emails to students checking in on their mental health. Mental health days that count as excused absences. Rather than giving a presentation, let us know that we matter, we're loved. Talked about as normal, give days or extensions due to mental health. So I've taken loads of information and tried to write these into feasible solutions. So these are our solutions. Excuse mental health days was one of the top. Students are encouraged, if they have a cough, if they have a headache, stay home right now. But they are not encouraged to stay home because of their mental health whatsoever. States have passed laws enacting excused mental health days. This is in the works, but this also, mental health, like someone can take, I know my parents let me take a day. They're like, Naya, take a day. But not everyone's parents are like that. Not everyone's parents are gonna be okay with them. And we'll talk about that a little later too. But not everyone's parents are okay with them staying home because of their mental health. And that's also a generational thing. My parents are a little younger, so they understand, and that's purely generational. But this is something that having and expressing that it is okay to stay home because you are zoning out in class and you're mentally not there. Like, you can stare at your teacher, but you are not retaining a single thing that they're saying. If you need a day to recover and come back better than you were, saying that it's okay to stay home for mental health destigmatizes it so much more than just saying you need to take a day and having your parents write a note. The second one that was incredibly popular was having a mental health specialist. A school counselor is not a therapist. They're not. We need a licensed therapist designated to immediate crisis management who is full-time on campus, not just 3 days a week, full-time, who can be there and see kids on campus and react to those things, who is not affiliated with academics. So a student doesn't feel like embarrassed because, I'm talking to my counselor about this extremely stressful course load, but then here I am asking them to write me a recommendation and asking them to put me in these AP classes. So how is a student supposed to do that and not feel embarrassed? So having this specialist on campus who can talk to these students and just isn't affiliated with academics makes so much more sense. So I know I got a lot of questions when I mentioned this to a few people about the current systems that are in place. Right now, someone mentioned to me referring students to community organizations. And while that's a great solution, try go on the wait list for UF psychology. So these are not equitable whatsoever. They require parent permission. Like I said earlier, some parents do not believe in therapy. I will be the first to admit that my parents did not believe in therapy for a hot minute and told me no. Told me no. But I got them. They're there now. But that took a lot of work. And that took 2 years of seeing my own school counselor and someone on campus who was there to help me. And I know that's the same situation with so many other students all across the state and in our own district. So having that, they would have to ask their parents if they can't drive, if they are younger. They would have to ask their parents to transport them to, if you wanted to say Meridian, for example, having their parent transport them to that location. It's incredibly inconvenient. There's a wait list, like I said, of at least 4 weeks, if they can stay on the wait list that long. So this just is not, that's not really an option right now. So I know there has been a lot of talk going around about possibly creating, I think, a mental health committee. And I'd like to say that this is something that we can't just stare at it much longer and hope it goes away, because it's really damaging. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna cry, but this is like really important, and it's so much more than you think it is. So I'd like to say thank you, and if you want to contact me with any questions, please feel free. That's my personal email, and if you have any questions now that I can take or answer, I'd be happy to do that as well. So.
Well, I want to thank you for the presentation, and it hits hard because truth is hard. And I'd like to see maybe if you could come back and we could actually do a workshop on this where we could see what could we do better as a school district. And I think you've given us a great outline here, but I don't want to drop it here. I'd like to see if we can set something up within the next couple of months where we could have a back and forth. So I'm speaking for me, and I think we'll be able to do that. Any other comments? Ms. Certain?
Naya, thank you for coming and for sharing with us. I think all of us that were in Tampa were very impressed with your presentation, and I appreciate you representing the district so well as yourself. Mental health is indeed a very important subject. I've spoken not just with you, but several other students, so I thank you for your vulnerability and for taking the time to compile this and come in. And Chair Hyatt, I do support that. I had a couple questions that I am going to direct to Dr. Edwards in the future about some of the suggestions that you made. The excused absence for mental health, I think that's beyond us here at our district. I'm not sure if that's something we could take up here, or if that has to come out of Tallahassee, that's something we could come. But thank you so much for taking the time to come with us, to speak with us.
Thank you. Any other board members wanted to comment? Okay. Naya, thank you so much. It was just terrific. And things that we all needed to hear. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Simon, we're here right now for the consent agenda.
Board members, I would like to recommend that the board adopt consent agenda items 2 through 8.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Any second? Okay, motion by Ms. Certain, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Any discussion?
I had just quick
Ms. Certain?
for Ms. Boker on the McKinney-Vento program. There are so many acronyms on there, so when staff, if you all, when you present these things, provide the documents, if you could have a key so that we could kind of match up on all of the acronyms, that would really help me, because there were a lot in this document, and about 2 of them I could follow, but the others I just couldn't. And I wasn't sure if you had any type of report on past McKinney-Vento stuff, but I can direct that to you in the future. You can get back to me, but a key would be really helpful of the acronyms that are used in the document.
I can empathize because I just started in this position recently, so I too am trying to learn all of it, so, yes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Certain. I think that's a great idea. It's always good to learn more acronyms, but Dr. Paulson, did you have a question on the consent agenda?
I'm trying to find it there. I want to see what's on it. Do we have one I can, I can't find it on there, so I'm going to ask a question. There's nothing on there about the strategic plan, the money for that?
On the consent agenda, I don't believe there is, no.
Well, it's important because I want to talk about it later.
Well, we
Good,
have,
I don't want to talk about it in favor of, I just want to know, I don't want it approved, and then I have to.
So, Mr. Hyatt,
Oh,
I can update on this. So, Dr. Paulson, we released the request for a proposal on Valentine's Day. So what was that, yesterday? So it's out. We don't have the contract till we go through this entire window, and so we'll make sure that when we get the
I want to
contract.
talk about it tonight, though.
well, I think we have time with board
Oh,
members.
okay.
Just where I don't want to get, just if I put it, if I can go with my board member request, I can do it there.
Yes,
That's all.
yes, yes.
I don't want to be,
Okay.
especially after that presentation by the ACEA.
Any further, Ms. Russell?
I had a question about the plan for the homeless youth and children, and our reaching out to them and helping them. It sounds like a wonderful program. I'm wondering, it seems that for us, it's a 10-month commitment. I'm wondering if there's anything for them in those other 2 months that will, do you know, I'm asking because I don't know if there's anything available to them between the time, our time ends and when we start again, to help keep them on an even path, to help keep them from falling away and just basically losing ground. Is there something for them in the summer that can reach out to them or help them in any way?
I welcome my colleagues to chime in on this. To my knowledge, we do try to refer them to other services and make sure that they are staying on track. But with the McKinney-Vento program, it really is focused on that school year education.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry, took a restroom break, now everybody knows. So,
Okay. I was asking Ms. Wise about summertime for the homeless children that we're reaching out to. We have them for 10 months. Then there's 2 months when they're not under our care. Is there someone who is looking after them and caring for them so they're not just losing ground in between times that they're under our care?
yes, ma'am. So, Ms. Russell, I'll have to ask the staff about what the coverage plan is for the summer.
Okay.
But I feel like there is for sure a plan to ensure that there is contact is maintained throughout the summer.
Okay, thank you.
And definitely our homeless liaison is full-time, so she is still available to work with the students.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? And any time, of course, for any board member that we need to pull one of the consent items and make them part of the action agenda, that can be done by any board member. It's not a vote, it's just you can do that as a board member. So if there's ever anything you need further discussion on, further information, that's doable. Also, it's always a good idea to check prior to the meeting with the superintendent or staff about that. So anyway, that being said, no further comments, we are going to vote on the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Action item number 1, Dr. Simon.
Thank you. The subject for this action item is School Board of Alachua County and Gainesville for All MOU. I would like to recommend that the board approve the MOU between the School Board of Alachua County and Gainesville for All as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I think motion by Dr. McNeely, seconded by Ms. Certain. Any discussion? Dr. Paulson.
Yeah, I'd like to compliment the person, James Lawrence. I am sure he called the rest of you too, to see if you had any discussion with him. And I found that very refreshing. And we had a good conversation. I had a few things I was wondering about, and also I got into things, and found out about our, early childhood, the pre-K. And we have, because it looked, he wanted to buy some equipment, and I wanted to know with equipment, what's going on. Pre-K already is promised 11 schools that equipment. So and when I got Mr. Lawrence, we had a discussion, and we went over different things in the contract. And, I think it educated me more in the pre-K. And I think we're doing a tremendous job in the pre-K. In the schools, we're trying to get them all that too. And I think he's doing a good job in his program for the next 2 years, right?
I think the contract,
It's for
the contract is
2024.
through 2025.
25? Okay, next 3 years. Anyway, I got my answers from him, but I also think we need to recognize what we're doing in these other schools too. And with the people in our district. And, I like to see, I told Mr. Lawrence if we could get together with the people in charge of that too. We do a lot of good things with these kids pre-K. And I think the program at Howard Bishop is a good program too. But I just want to compliment him. Every time I've ever worked with him, he's pretty easy to work with. And that's, and I appreciated that. And I think you can get a lot done when you work with people that are easy to work with, and you can talk to each other. So I'd like to compliment him. I'd like to make sure we still realize our pre-K program. The reason, again, is because in his contract, it does say that we're on to get furniture from over by Rawlings. And the thing about it is, all that furniture's already been promised out to schools. So I thought that was interesting. And because we're having these programs that are really good, because they were changing the programs in the last couple of years at the state level. And, I didn't even realize that, but I do now. And again, so, I'm going to vote for this. I'm not trying, I guess, I hope everybody votes for it. But I think it'd still be good. If he could talk to the people at pre-K, I think they know what's going on in Tallahassee. It could be helpful. And we could help kids, because these kids they'll come into kindergarten much better off than they were 3-4 years ago. And our teachers are doing a good job. Because I was worried, what in the contract, I said, what are we going to do? Are we going to ask our teachers to do extra work? And he answered all the questions. I'm not going to go through everything. But I am going to make sure I'm going to bring this up, and I'll bring it up every meeting. We got to look at our pre-K program, because they're doing a very good job in other schools. And I think that needs to be recognized. And people can work together. They can help the people over Howard Bishop, we can help each other. And that's where the rubber hits the road. We get these kids coming into kindergarten knowing what they're doing. So, I've been a little, some things, I got a lot on my mind right now. And I'm glad that I got into this conversation. So I just thought that needed to be said. And I've never had a bad meeting with James Lawrence. Never. And I'm not a butter up on some people. This man, I've always had good meetings with him. I wish I had them with everybody like that. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Paulson. I had no request, no paperwork from anyone wanting to speak on this, but I really should have asked for public comment specifically on item 1. I didn't have any. Do we have anyone here that wanted to speak to item 1? Ms. Russell's going to be next after.
Mr. Hyatt?
Yes.
I do want you to know that James Lawrence is in the audience, so if you would like him to speak before public comment, I don't know if you want that as an opener.
Well, I would, as far as I know, Mr. Lawrence is a member of the public, and I've never known him to be hesitant to speak. So, and I do appreciate the the hard work, not only Mr. Lawrence's hard work, but the hard work by the district, because this is a partnership. And I don't think it was all that easy. Mr. Lawrence, I don't know if you would like to speak, great. If not, we can keep going.
I wouldn't have said all those nice things if I knew you were there.
Good evening, everyone. I'm James Lawrence, Executive Director of Gainesville for All, and I'm really pleased to be here this evening to talk about what I believe is probably one of the most important subjects that a school board such as this one could discuss. And given what's happening with our children, and when I say our children, I mean this community's children, what's happening is that we can do so much better. And it's not solely just up to you guys as members of the school board to do it. The community has a stake in this, and that's what Gainesville for All is all about. If I could just back up, I do want to say that I thank you guys for the opportunity to talk to you about this program and what it is that we're doing. And at the same time, I especially want to say thanks to Dr. Simon over there. And Dr. Simon, as many of you may not know, while she did not initiate this program, she picked the ball up and ran with it. And it was not, in my opinion, everything was not so much smooth, but because we've been talking now for at least a year about this program and where we're trying to go with it. And she represented it well, she and her staff. I see over there, Ms. Turney, the lawyer, people like Abita Jackson Carter, Donna Jones, all of these folks were part of a team that worked, and there was a lot of push and pull. So I want everybody to understand that. And as a result, the agreement that you have before you, members of the board, is an agreement that really took a lot of work to get it to you this evening. But I'm really pleased that it is the start of something that we believe will be a sincere partnership between Gainesville for All, and when we say Gainesville for All, we're talking about community members, because we have sought to get community input from a wide spectrum of organizations, individuals who see this as something that really needs to be done in the Gainesville community. So I recall just last week I was watching online the public hearing here, and one of the citizens made the comment about the huge achievement gap. And she asked you guys to really give us some thought as to where you're going with that. In other words, it seemed to me you guys should just mold this. And we know that the achievement gap in this community is one of the widest in the state of Florida between African American and white students. That's just unacceptable. And we want to help. And that's why we're here. We want to help. And we started on this journey, and it is a journey, since Gainesville for All's inception back in 2016. It was back in 2016 where community members came together and they made a recommendation that there be an early learning facility to serve low-income households on the east side of Gainesville. That was back in 2016. We put that out there because essentially we're an advocacy organization. But no, there were no takers. There were no takers to move on it. Never mind that research shows that a child's brain development occurs at least 85% of it, 85% by age 3. Another 90% by age 5. So many of our children aren't showing up until kindergarten. So, and we look at, well, why is this huge gap here between black and white students? And so it's the children primarily from low-income households who are struggling most. And what we're trying to do is to provide the help that they too can live and lead productive lives. So that's what the Gainesville Empowerment Zone Early Learning Center is all about. And we've been working on this mission now, as I said, almost 5 years to get where we are today. But we are committed to making this work, but we're going to need the help of the board, the help of the administration, the help of the business community, of private citizens, because what we are trying to do is to demonstrate that this is the way that public education should be run going into the 21st century. We're now in the 20s of the 21st century, and we're still operating in many ways as we did in the 20th century. So we need to make some major adjustments. And this is a demonstration project that's really aimed at helping to redesign the public education system. We want to show that by starting early, we're doing it, I remember way eons ago, when I was a kid in kindergarten, it was solely the private sector. Now we have VPK, however you want to view VPK, but nonetheless, it's a part of public education. And so we want to make early learning a part of public education in the same way. Right now, for the most part, high quality early learning is the province of people who can't afford it. It's through the public education system that we believe that we can get to those kids whose families can't afford it. Families. This is a family learning center. I can't stress that enough. While child care is something that we're going to provide, it is not the absolute essential part of what we're trying to do. We want to get to those kids early as pregnancy. As early as pregnancy. We're going to link those mothers with prenatal care that can help them deliver strong babies. And we will take those babies as early as 6 weeks old, and through kindergarten at our facility. And we hope to service at least from 67 to 80 children. But we're not stopping there, going back to the emphasis on family learning center. So just as we're going to focus on those kids, we're also going to be focusing on their families. Now, I was an editorial page editor in Rochester, New York for almost 25 years. And I can tell you, I've written a lot of editorials, and I've seen a lot of superintendents who came to our editorial board, and we would ask the questions, why kids, and again, let me just say this too, that in urban education, it's the same pretty much across the country. So don't think that the problems here are unique, because they're not. And I've lived all over the country doing my years as a journalist, and that goes back some 45 plus years. And there's the same problems. Low achievement, primarily among children of color and low-income families. So we're going to focus on the child, but also we're going to be focusing on the family. That's a key difference here. We're going to look at when we do an intake we're going to be asking about issues surrounding the family, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's career counseling, job counseling, vocational training. Those are the kinds of things, and those services are available in our community. But for the most part, or all too often, those services aren't hooked up to the people who need them most. So we're going to have something called a position called a community connector. That community connector, whose job will solely be to connect our families to the services that they need. And in so doing, we think that we can create more stable families, and thus more stable families can produce the kind of academic outcomes that could lead to success in the classroom. And let me just also add that one of the things too, that while academics is a major part of it, and I'm going to wrap this up, but I get really tied up with this because I really believe that it is the way forward. So, but academics is a key component of what we want to do, but also we're going to be working with that child to produce a child who's socially, behaviorally, and developmentally, and emotionally ready for school, because all too often those kids aren't ready, not only with the fact that they're showing up not knowing the colors and numbers and shapes, but many just in terms of how to adjust. So there's much more, and if you have questions, I'll let you guys go with, and I'll try to answer whatever questions you might have.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence. And if you have a website.
Yes, we do.
If you would give that, Ms. Green, would you wave your hand? Ms. Green, can you wave your hand? If you'll see Ms. Green over here and give her that website, we'll make sure it gets in the minutes. Sure. Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Russell has a question for you.
Yes, Ms. Russell.
Good evening, Mr. Lawrence. When we were talking before, I was asking how you were going to prepare the children for school. Is there a particular program, activities, curriculum, whatever it may be? There's so many things out there for young children that age that can help them learn early, even foreign languages. So do you have that in place, that plan for what you will do?
We don't have the actual curriculum in place, but we're talking about, and I really didn't get a chance to acknowledge my team members. Many of them are here, and one of them is Rebecca Renicki, who is our interim director and also a consultant, working as a consultant with us, who might give you a little bit more detail about that.
So we haven't chosen the curriculum yet because we are working with Pat.
Please go to the microphone.
Sorry. We are working with Pat Snyder from the Lessinger Center to design or use a curriculum of choice. It will be a NACE accredited curriculum.
A what?
A National Association for the Education of Young Children will be using a curriculum that they use for sure. There also will be a social emotional curriculum. We don't know if we're going to be using, I'm so sorry, I didn't expect to speak, conscious discipline or the pyramid model. So we have multiple choices and we're going to get them in place, and all staff will be trained prior to the beginning of our year.
Okay. I also have another question, if that's okay. How much time do you anticipate the parents of the children being on the campus there?
So because it's a 0 to 5, they have to come into the building to sign in, and they have to sign out their child. We will do a lot of the family stuff outside in different agencies, like the partnership with the library, and so the parents won't be necessarily.
All the services that we're going to offer we're going to be doing referrals. For the most part, we won't deliver those services on site. We will find out what the needs are and connect the families to those services in the community.
Okay, and one last question about that. In Building 11, are there Metcalf students also in Building 11? I'm not quite sure about that. Or is it the space will just be for the Early Learning Center?
Space will be just for the Family Learning Center.
Okay.
And I can clarify that even further. So if you've been to Metcalf, the school that we've had the remodeling and the design on is now further east on the lot. And what used to be the PI building, and then it served as the administrative office when we were doing the remodel work, that is on the northwest corner of the lot, and it's right up against the tracks. They have an entirely separate gating system, and entirely separate parking system, fire alarm, security. So they are on that actual lot, but they are totally structurally disconnected from the main campus.
Thank you. And I guess, I don't know if Dr. Simon is the one to ask about this. In future, we know that Metcalf is underzoned, and we have to tackle zoning at some point. So is it a possibility that we will need that space I know it's down the road, but that's a possibility that we will need that space for Metcalf students after some kind of rezoning?
So as Mr. Lawrence has brought up, we've had a lot of discussions back and forth on what the school district needs in the event changes occur. So we do have a part in the MOU agreement that does describe in the event we have to end the relationship because the district needs that building. We do think that what their service is a value added to the school system, so we would like to do what we can. But if we run into the situation where the enrollment is so high, we have that option. I will tell you, though, with Metcalf, because of the master plan, there is an entirely planned ahead building that would reflect the one that exists in the event we had just a major shift. But so there's a couple of options if our population takes a drastic change.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I've got, I think, Dr. McNeely next, Ms. Certain, Dr. Paulson, but I just got one other public comment. Now that we're back to the public as opposed to the folks that we're having the MOU with from Gainesville for All, we're going back to actual 2-minute. And I would like to ask if there is anyone else that wants to speak to this issue, we need to do it right after the next speaker, because then we're going back to the board and we're not going to go back to the public. So I believe it's Ms. Keene.
Sorry, I'm Facebook live streaming since YouTube's down and people are texting. So I had a couple questions, and Mr. Lawrence kind of answered a few of them. I brought this up at a school board meeting because I had found out about it and hadn't really had a presentation. So just going further, I think as a citizen for me, I would like to have a presentation. I think that was very nice to have him come out and talk and communicate his vision. I think it's a great program. As working in a elementary school, or not elementary school, a preschool, I can see the great need. A lot of our students, especially after, I like to call my own kid a COVID baby, they are behind and they are delayed. So I do see the need. My concern was some of the social services. Didn't understand how that was going to work. It seems like they're not going to be on campus. That was a concern because as a parent who's in elementary, I don't know if they're going to be going through the, what's the volunteer software for being on campus? Like I have to do it to be a volunteer. Raptor, thank you. Are those people going through a Raptor test to be on school campus? Just questions like that that I'm not sure if the Metcalf families would want to know. I think that was it. Sorry, a lot of my notes are on my phone and I'm Facebook streaming. So I think that was it. There might be one more, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. And Now we're going to go back. That closes the public comment on action item 1. And next is Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the Executive Director of the Empowerment, Family Empowerment Zone Early Childhood Center. I am so glad that you all are here. I see more members in the audience who comprise of your team, and if you have an opportunity, I hope you would introduce them. But I wanted to say to the public and to anyone who may have questions about the children who will be attending this center, I think, colleague Russell, this is wonderful. And the reason I say that, because many of the children that will be in this program will be transitioning to Metcalf anyway. And we want to provide those students with the best of the best. And I think inasmuch that the kind of work that they have been working on through the Gainesville for All for the past 3, 4, 5 years almost, we have so many people in the community who saw a need for this program. And that's why this is certainly establishing what can happen in other sections of our community. We have a great program out west that the SWAG group, they can take advantage of. And now we have something very, very similar, if not the same, on the east side. And inasmuch that we want to be able to close the gap that Mr. Lawrence has spoken about, but we all 5 of us, have spoken about beforehand. I think this is a great opportunity for the families and the children. I would hope that we would have a system in place, as the citizen just talked about, the Raptor, that I'm sure will be in place. But as we all know, you can't have an early childhood program with not involving our parents. You would want it for your grands, I want it for my grands. We have to be a part. We can't just put them there and think that there is not going to be any participation from a parent. You wouldn't want that to happen. And we all know the importance of the connection with the school as well as for this center. Now, what we must remember is that when the lease time is up, I'm hoping that our zoning or whatever we've done will be in place so that Metcalf, Rawlings, and any other school that may be under-enrolled during that period of time, we will have a place for those children. But just be glad that this board may, I don't know, but based on comments I heard earlier, may decide that this is the great thing. Thank you, Dr. Paulson. This is a great thing for our community, especially the children who will be served in this center. So I didn't want any fears to come about the children that we will be serving, because all of our children are great, and all of our families will be so involved and excited about this. And I hope that we will, as a board, once they get established in the fall, that we will be volunteering and helping out in the center, because that's what's needed. And I heard the ED say, we need to come together and unify, and that will show it and prove it. And I think we are all grandparents except Mrs. Certain. So we all know what it takes and how involvement should occur. So thank you so much to the team. I've enjoyed being on the beginning, and now I'm on the end. So I have really enjoyed, and there are other people in here.
Could I take a minute and just introduce?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lawrence, I'll be quiet.
I had it to do, and I just got to my comments. But let me just go back to Rebecca Renicki. Rebecca is serving as a consultant and our interim ED. She comes highly skilled, having served as the executive director at Holy Trinity Preschool right here downtown. She's also an officer of a accrediting organization that deals with preschools. So we're really, really fortunate to have her. This is Corey Harris. He's a member of our board. Corey Harris is with the Neighborhood Housing Development Corporation. He's executive director. We have Lawrence Certain here, who is is a team leader of our criminal justice team. Then we have Dr. Sally Williams over there, who is our education leader of our education team. And last but not least is Marion Ratson, who is the retired city attorney for the city of Gainesville. Now, all of these people, not a single one of them is being paid. We just brought Rebecca on as a consultant, so she hasn't gotten her first paycheck yet. But all of these great folks are volunteers. They believe in the cause, and I can't tell you how fortunate we are as a community to have people like themselves who are willing to step up and step out.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Daly. Are you finished this time?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Paulson.
Yeah, one thing, James, when do you think you'll have her up running full speed?
Well,
They told me today it takes a lot of
full
work.
speed, it probably will take us a year or so.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is we're trying, we got slowed a little bit, and we had hoped to be farther along than we are right now. But we do plan on opening our doors no later than August. Now, we would have classes that will start with infancy, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 4-year-olds. So we haven't made a determination as to what a phase-in would look like. Once we get our executive director in place, she or he will be a part of that discussion as we move forward as to what that's going to look like.
And I appreciate if you can, in the future, just continue to give me updates. I'd love that.
I will. More than glad to.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are ready for a vote.
So it'll be tight.
I got it. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, and I think Mr. Lawrence, you have a future as a lobbyist in Congress if you'd like to do that, because you keep pushing the message. Next, action item number 2, Ms. Wise.
Thank you, Chairman Hyatt, Superintendent Simon, and Board. I have for you this evening a draft of the 22-23 school calendar. I appreciate the collaboration with Ms. Ward and her calendar committee. The calendar is something that we work on together each year. And for the 22-23 school year, we are proposing a couple of changes that I'd like to bring to your attention. We have 2 potential additional teacher professional development days in this calendar, and those are yet to be negotiated, but we have reserved the days for those in the case that they will be. And we have also moved spring break to align with the University of Florida, which is something that has generated a lot of discussion, and we have that would be moving it 1 week earlier than it is this year. So we would like to try that next year and see if that is something that works out well for our Teachers are students and our community, and so tonight, I bring the draft calendar to you, and the superintendent recommends that you approve this draft calendar for the 22-23 school year.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Surton, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Any public input? Okay, okay, now we have board Ms. Ward.
Thank you. I do appreciate our collaborative work on the calendar. I do want to say that our calendar committee from ACA was very against the earlier week because it makes it a long time till the end of the school year. And that is the time where discipline is the worst. And I just had to say something because that was one of our differences. We had a lot of agreements for the calendar to come together as beautifully as it did, but the one difference was the spring break. I want you to carefully consider that the people on the ACA committee representing the teachers and staff were in favor of keeping spring break where it is. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Yes, ma'am, if you'd like to comment on that.
Hi, good evening again, Jana Reichard one more time. This time representing parents. As a parent of 3 teenagers, when you guys just said about having spring break the same time as UF, I cringed because I have 3 teenagers, and that's when partying happens. So for me, I am in agreement with Ms. Ward that I really think that needs to be reconsidered because you can't always watch your teenagers, and also I drive the buses, so I know what teenagers do. I hear their conversations. It's a bad idea. We should keep them separated. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well,
I'm just,
but before you, Dr. Paulson, before that, any other public comment? Yes.
Comment, maybe question. How does that affect, because I almost think it's a good idea there's a lot of students who are dual enrolled at Santa Fe and UF, I believe. And I know several families that have a lot, especially families who are like a blended family, have older kids, younger kids. Having different spring breaks is very difficult for them, especially if their children are at Santa Fe or UF or public or charter. So to me, it kind of seems okay, and maybe just think about that. I'm not sure how that affects dual enrollment, but I would imagine dual enrollment follows the college. That's it.
Okay, thank you, and, okay, next, Ms. Surton, and then Dr. Simon.
Thank you. I was going to just commend Ms. Wise and the calendar committee for aligning the spring breaks because we've gotten so many emails from citizens, from parents wanting the two to align. And so I was thinking, now that the calendar's out, we won't have a bunch of angry emails about that. So I don't have children in school now, but I am sensitive to it. A few people have said something to me about the week at Thanksgiving, the whole week, for having the entire week out because the parents work the Monday through Wednesday and they only have the 2 days out. But I've gotten way more emails by far about the spring break. So I was thinking I was hoping that was an agreement between both halves. But I think we try this to see how it works out. You know, I'm not sure. I did check. That was the first thing I checked when I got the draft from staff. Ms. Wise, can you tell me how it aligns with Santa Fe? Is Santa Fe's break the same time as UF in 22?
I'm not sure that it is, Ms. Surton.
Okay, thank you.
It's not posted now, but my understanding is that they currently do not consider what UF's spring break is to set their own calendar.
We also, the homecoming date on here is our best guesstimate because that has also not been determined by UF at this time. So there is a chance that that holiday would move to a different Friday.
Well, I did want to comment that I've always been for the later spring break, and I've voted that way every other year. I think this is an opportunity, because it's only 1 week, to go ahead and try it. Now, if we do it, and the teachers and the ESPs think, oh my gosh, this is the worst decision ever, then the board after that can certainly say, okay, we're going back. I don't think 1 week's difference is that crucial, and so I'm willing to give it a try, and I think our high school students live in pretty close proximity with university students as it is, and I have a feeling that there wouldn't be any more commingling during a spring break than there might already be. So that isn't a concern, even though I do have a 16-year-old granddaughter. So do I have any? Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Simon.
Thank you. I wanted to add just a couple of more points because I know there was a discussion about the length of time between spring break and the end of the year. And we did have a professional development day that we put in that time period to try to also create a relief. And then just as a personal note, I've been a grad student or a faculty member in my life for most of my children's lives, and not having a spring break with my children had enormous impacts on family planning and doing activities. And the University of Florida has over 31,000 employees, and I think many of them are parents of our children, and I think that this might be something that I appreciate the discussion that you're willing to give it a try for the year, and we'll survey and find out, but I think this would benefit.
Okay. Any other board members have a comment? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Next, Mr. Green.
Chair Hyatt, board members, and superintendent, I'm bringing before you Constellation Charter's application contract for us to be approved tonight. I do apologize to not only this board, but also to Constellation's board of directors about the miscommunication about last week. I was out, didn't have a chance to touch base with everybody before that meeting. But this is, again, the charter, Constellation's charter has been approved. The application was approved May 18th of 2021, and this is just the formal contract, in the standard contract that we present to all charter schools in Alachua County.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Do I have a motion to approve? A motion by Ms. Surden, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Any public comment? Okay, any other board comment?
I'd like to comment, 'cause
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. I wanted to apologize to Mrs. Pelosi. I think I saw her when she came in tonight. I brought that up, and I don't think I swayed this board at all, but I wanted to say that was not the first time that I have asked about location of charters. And after Mr. Green gave me a call and reminded me that it was already approved and what the state has indicated anyway, then I said, all well and good. So I wanted you to hear that from me personally.
Thank you very much, Dr. McNeely. Any further board comment? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Ms. Turney. action item number 4.
Good evening again. We're here for action item number 4, the repeal of Mask Policy 8450.01 titled Protective Facial Coverings During Pandemic Endemic Events. As a result of legislative amendments to Florida statutes and the recently entered writ of mandamus, the repeal of Policy 8450.01 puts us in compliance with the requirements of both the new legislation and the writ of mandamus. The board held a first reading on December 7, 2021, and a public hearing on January 18, 2022, on the proposed repeal of Board Policy 8450.01, Protective Facial Coverings During Pandemic Endemic Events. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the repeal of Policy 8450.01, Protective Facial Coverings During Pandemic Endemic Events, as set forth in the attached documents as presented.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Russell. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Surton. Any public discussion? Any board discussion? Okay. Is this public discussion? Did you want to speak to the issue, sir? Okay, please go ahead. State your name, please.
My name is Byron Hickman. I teach at Eastside High School, and I'm been chomping at the bit to say this. Those of us that have been affected by this COVID pandemic, the pain is immense. I have to funeralize one of my church members Saturday. She was doing fine until she decided to go and visit family members. She contracted COVID, and she passed away Monday. Everybody is inconvenienced. Everybody hurts. But I didn't choose to live. The politicization of this death is sad, and we need to stop it. The kids at my school come to me to get masked every morning. Since you took the courage to do what you've done for this district, I thank you. You've kept me living, and you've kept some students not so fearful. So all of the personal arguing about this reality of life and death, you need to stop it. So I came here this evening, one, to stand for the union. Teachers work hard. They work hard, and they need to be appreciated. Unfortunately, the level of appreciation doesn't start with you.
Mr. Chair, we're at 2 minutes.
Years ago,
Sir,
2 minutes, that's all I had.
and if you'd like to come back and finish your thoughts at the end of the meeting, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Good evening. Sorry, I talk a lot. On behalf of our SBAC bus drivers, since they are not here to speak for themselves, I talk to a lot of them all the time, and that is one of the biggest things that they would like to have is a requirement for masks on the bus. Me personally, I would love to have masks on the bus. Outside, I'm not a big mask person. But when we're in these enclosed areas, especially on a school bus, the only filtration system that we have is a mesh filter. I had sent some emails to Mr. Jones. He had tried to get some sort of something figured out for a better filter system. But unfortunately, he was told by the bus company that that was not possible, because the ones that I was suggesting, or the solution that I had suggested, would mess up the air conditioners. So for the bus drivers, I would like to ask that, even if nothing else, please require them on the bus, even for the students. Yes, it is hard to get the students to keep them on, especially when they're in elementary school, because they want to play. But 50 out of the 70 of them wearing them is better than 0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Do I have any board member comments? Ms. Certain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just say, we're having to repeal this policy because of the law that was passed in the special session. So that's why we're voting on this tonight. I mean, we tried. And so the students, if they choose to wear a mask, they still can. I understand, and we've heard from our drivers in our transportation department about the students in close quarters, unmasked, and the danger and all. And we know that the illnesses and the deaths that we've had in your department, as well as in, teachers and other staff, Mr. Hickman as well. We're not insensitive to that, but we're actually doing this as a result of a law that was created during the special session. Now, my personal opinion is it's overreach into what the local board could do, but this is a mandate that we have to do. So we're hoping that the students and their families will still choose to do that, but by law, we have to repeal this policy, and we're going through this process. Just as we adopted the policy back when COVID first started, we have to go and do the same thing to repeal it, and so that's why we're here, to do that. But unfortunately, as Mr. Hickman said, his comments were very appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Certain, and I would just echo Ms. Certain words there. We were, put in this position by the legislature, and then, of course, the governor signed the bill. But I will say, when I visited schools, it varies quite a bit. When I visited East Side, I was so proud to see so many of the young folks at East Side wearing masks, and I hope that would be a model for every other school in this district. But as Ms. Certain said, we're following the law as created in December. Couldn't wait, had to go ahead and have that special session, because goodness knows the legislative session wasn't long enough as it is. But anyway, that being said, do we have any other board comment? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Shannon, and thank you, Ms. Turney. Mr. Rella, action item 5.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Simon. Action item 5 is the approval of the school staffing plan for the 2022-23 school year. I know we're kind of just getting started with the second semester, but in terms of budget, we're well underway, doing a lot of reviews of departmental staffing, of course, the school-based staffing, looking at FT projections, et cetera. So in terms of the staffing manual, all recommended changes work through the budget committee as per our normal process. And there are a few tweaks in here, as you can see. The superintendent recommends the board approve the school staffing allocations for the 22-23 school year as presented.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Certain. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. McNeely. Any public comment?
Carmen Ward, and I just am concerned about the media center reduction of allocation. Because if we care about literacy, and we want literacy to be equitable across our county, we need to invest more in our media centers, not less. And so I don't see how this lines up with the other goals of this district.
Any further public comment? Okay, do we have, okay, Ms. Russell.
I would like to ask about the East School, why it's called a center. They have 900, wait, let me look, okay, 900 full-time students and over 2,000 part-time students and 13 teachers who, yes, have flexibility in their schedules, but they have to monitor every one of those students, and it's done either by phone or by text or by email, and they work even at night talking to students and parents because that's when they're available, and a lot of students don't have a phone to text and so forth. But they are one of our largest schools. They're not a center, and in the allocations, that was even marked out that they don't get an assistant principal. They need an assistant principal, and according to the formula, they should have some other support staff as well. And I've talked to several e-school folk, and they are really concerned about it. Not why it was, hopefully it was an oversight that they are now considered a center rather than a school. So I would like to advocate for them to get them the staff that they need and the allocations that, according to their size, that they should have.
So in terms of the e-school, obviously they operate a completely different program than our traditional K-12 brick and mortar schools. There's a lot of stuff that's of course different in terms of the actual instructional programming. It's asynchronous, so you're not live in front of your class as you typically would. You kind of work at your own pace. And the class sizes are more because they're not subject to class size, and since there's a lot of those pieces in terms of the instruction that's taking place in our brick and mortar that doesn't really apply to the e-school. And we have looked at their staffing a lot, especially over the last few years, because we have seen, significant increases in their enrollment, certainly last year, and that trend, as the board knows, has kind of continued into this year. So we did make some programmatic changes. They really, were advocating for additional support staff. We did provide some, but in terms of them being staffed as a traditional brick and mortar school, I mean, when you think about a school, you have, obviously in some cases up to 2,000 kids coming to your school every day. So there's a certain portion that relates to student supervision and student service and food service and all the staff that's necessary to accept the public, accept the children in person. And there's a lot of supports that kind of go along with that. That's certainly we can look at the programming. I think Superintendent Simon has some thoughts.
I can also speak to that a bit more. So first off, our students who attend eSchool, they're funded on a different funding mechanism, and they're funded at course completion and not at the beginning. And so it does have just financial limitations that do not align with those of a traditional brick and mortar school. Additionally, many of our brick and mortar schools, the assistant principals, they support with behavior, they support with instructional methodology, they support with the facility needs. And so in a school that doesn't technically have a quote-unquote brick and mortar facility, there are differences, and obviously behavior management in an online setting is different, especially in an asynchronous course program. We have worked with our administrator who is serving as the principal of eSchool, and we talk with her about her needs. But I think that the approach to provide the solutions that the e-school needs don't correlate and align in the same way to a brick and mortar facility. We are trying to support her, and we are continually working with them on that.
Well, I realize they're not the same, but they still have 2,900 students, and they're responsible for having when they have a test, they have to have between 24 and 48 hours. They have to monitor their progress every month, talking to parents, talking to students. Maybe they don't need a behavioral response team, but they do need some support to help them accomplish the things that they need to do and still do the teaching that they do with their students. 2,900 students, that's a lot of students.
Well, it's not 2,900 full-time students.
No, 900 full-time, but there are 2,000 or more part-time students, and they all have to have this individual monitoring and this individual attention. And they are a school. And last year, I understand the East School, because of the full-time equivalent and students and so forth, they brought in $1.8 million. So
I don't know where that.
I just think they need a little more consideration for their needs. They have needs that are not being met. They're tired. They work longer hours than brick and mortar teachers, way longer hours. So I just feel like they need some more consideration for their needs.
Can I say something?
So, Ms. Russell, we'll happily work and talk with the principal, but we have spent a considerable amount of time trying to address the needs of the school as well as with the teachers. And I do believe that we are doing what we believe is important to make sure the students have the experience and the teachers feel supported. If you're feeling that we need to address this more, I will be happy to speak with you, and we can make sure that we are relaying the information to the team in this process.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Certain, and then Dr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had one question, Mr. Rella. Ms. Ward said that we were reducing media. I didn't see that in here. Maybe I missed it. Can you tell me which page that's on? Because I saw that, I like the strike through in red. That made it easier to follow the changes, but if I am missing that, please help me. Because I agree, I think I do want the media staff to be supported. That is important, but I didn't see it in the document.
Right, so that, obviously, as we know, the media programs are incredibly important. They're supported by the mill. They're really integral for student engagement, but then also for, providing time for all teachers to have planning time, et cetera. There are no recommended changes to the media specialist program in the staffing manual.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Paulson.
Ms. Russell, if anybody, you could look at the agendas in September last year. I asked if we look at the e-school and how you fund it. Now, in defense of the superintendent, there is a significant less funding. It's significantly less, and you have to finish it. That's correct, too. And the funding is like 5/7 of what you get for a regular student. So I guess, to look at that and make sure we're fundamentally sound with our money. Okay. If we're going to be, we just can't spend money that we don't have. And in all defense, it is significantly different, like 5/7 of what we get for a regular student. And we don't get them, just like Mr. Rella said, unless the state actually get a grade. Right, Mr. Rella?
Right, so we only get funded for the asynchronous e-school for completions.
And even if it completes, it's a lot less than what a regular funding is.
Right, so the thought process is obviously the e-school being asynchronous virtual, the cost of delivering the program is less. So we receive, I want to say, around $5,200 a student for the completion and about $7,800 per student for our traditional brick and mortar.
I thought 7,000. But, I wanted us to look at this last year because I thought we were going to need this year during the year, and nobody ever looked at it. But I'm not going to be completely in favor of what they're saying. But there is a a difference in funding. You got to look at that. You know, if we keep ourselves in financial good shape. Our reserve, we can't let our reserve just go down.
Okay. Sure, Ms. Russell.
Right, I agree. And we're having the same issue with teachers everywhere, brick and mortar and so, the money. But
The
someone.
funding's not.
No, I know, I understand. But I don't know who it was, I can't remember who it was earlier who spoke about administrative staffing at the district and the bringing on people at higher salaries and so forth. Maybe we need to take a look there. Maybe we need to take a look at how many district employees we have, and perhaps we don't need them all. Maybe we can make some changes there so that we can release money into our schools, into our teachers, and the e-school. I mean, they're happy, but I know it's not the same, I do understand that, but if we want to keep teachers, we can't just take them for granted and expect them to work all those longer hours and not have enough staff to help out. That's all I'm saying, so.
That's a good point, too. That's another point.
And
Right,
Yeah.
exactly right.
So I don't know, maybe we need to do an audit of.
Excuse me, Mr. Hyatt.
Dr. Simon.
So we do look at our administrative salaries and we compare them to how it works proportionally to years past. Although there was the reorganizational chart that was changed, one thing that I would say is just a disagreement with the previous public comment. We aligned the funding to previous practices to make sure. I will also say, based on what Representative Fine has proposed in the state, our district administrators are key members of the functioning of this organization, and it may seem appropriate to cut the pay for every district administrator, but this district would not fund or function without them. We do look at these things very strongly. I will also say on top of it, because of the expansion of the voucher programs, and this hasn't been brought up, and I think it does need to be, because of the expansion of the voucher programs, we have lost $11 million this year that we will need to figure out how to get this funding from. And so that has been a way of removing the public dollars and putting them into the private sector, and the school district is having to account for this. We very much consider supporting our schools, and we focus on this very, very much. And so I think I can speak with you further about this, but I am confident that Ms. Wise and Mr. Rella are doing everything they can to support our schools.
If I may, Mr. Hyatt, I wasn't suggesting cutting their salaries at the district. I'm thinking that maybe we should cut some employees. It's just something to take a look at. We have to do something, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Russell. Thank you, Dr. Simon.
Mr. Chair, would you have Mrs. Russell to repeat her, I couldn't hear her. The very last thing she says, we may have to cut.
I was saying that I'm not saying we need to cut the salaries of district people, but maybe we have more employees than in the district than we need. We should take a look at it and maybe do an audit of it. I don't know. I'm just saying,
Okay.
somehow or another, we've got to do something.
Thank you very much, Ms. Russell. I had a question, and I don't know if this is a Mr. Rella question or a Ms. Turney question. If this is adopted, approved here, I assume that we would have a chance to amend this as time goes on. Would that be correct?
Certainly. So obviously, the staffing plan is a little bit of a living document. We, obviously align the approval with the budget process because it is probably, besides the FT, like the most important input to the budget in terms of 80% of our costs going to staffing. But certainly, if there's stuff that the board wants to work through the superintendent and make adjustments, that would be
Right. I mean, and I'm very, as Ms. Ward pointed out, I'm concerned about media allocations. I'm also, as Ms. Russell pointed out, I'm concerned about the e-school and that I think it's probably now more important than ever, and so and of course the whole as you know better than anyone here, we always have to look at the finances. And so that's not to be brushed aside, but if there were a way and I'm not saying assistant principal or any position, but if there were a way to give a few more helping hands to the e-school, I'd like to look into that possibility. I'm not demanding anything. I'm just saying it would help me to right, exactly. It would help me to learn to be better informed on this. So I'm going to support this as long as I know we can amend it, and I know I certainly accept this as an honest effort to do the best we can with the money. I don't question anything there, but I want to see if we could maybe help out in a couple of places. Dr. Paulson.
You can do that, and I did it when I was first on the board, with Dr. Boyd even. And if I looked at it and I thought financially we couldn't afford it, I come to the other board members at a board meeting and withhold it. Or I'd go to the superintendent and say, I think we should not hire these people, and we'll withhold it. And the superintendent, and then if they don't want to do it, then you come to the board too. But that's another way, the flexibility's there, is what I'm saying. And your point, I've done this before, because I looked at the reserve. The reserve was going in the wrong direction. It's time to stop. And then you look and see where you want to, who you want to freeze, or what positions. So I mean, that's another way to do it. Does that make sense? We can look. We get the staffing report, right? Oh, sorry. We get it. Okay. First thing I did when I got on this board is I wanted a staffing report, because we could watch this every month. You get it out every month, right, Mr. Rella?
Yes, sir.
And you look at that and you see what's going on, and if we need to, we can, stop hiring. We can go to the superintendent. I've done that many times. Now, if everybody else disagrees, then it'd probably come up at the board meeting, and we could disagree and then see how the majority wants it. But, that gives us, it's not like we're frozen. I mean, we're approving a staffing report. And then after that, we don't have to hire everybody. We just have those available to us. Isn't that the right?
Okay.
Mr. Rella, we have it available, don't have to use it, do we?
Right, and I should mention, although it's not necessarily relating to this staffing plan, we review departmental vacancies, positions, programs every year. We actually had a meeting this afternoon with the administrative team to look at positions. Obviously, we're in a very difficult position budget-wise, not just for this year with the $11 million shortfall, but also kind of looking forward into next year. We are going to have to cut some vacant positions. We've already identified some of those we will be cutting, and of course we will discuss that with the board as we typically would through the budget process.
But I like to point out that staffing report is important. That's why we get it every month. And we'll look at it, we can look at it and see if it's time to put the reins on it.
Excuse me.
Okay, yeah.
May I have just one?
Yeah, I was coming to you next, Dr. Simon. I was waiting for everybody to be done. Dr. Simon.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the media specialist, there is not an adjustment. I think that was a confusion. So I just want to make sure that my understanding is that it's not changed. So
Yeah, we've already had public comment, so we're not going to go back. And if there is a questioning of that or any information, I think you know who to call, and we'll get that straightened out. Okay, any other board comment? Okay, not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Rella. Okay, action item 6, Dr. Simon.
Yes, I'd like to bring to the board amendments to the District Advisory Council's bylaws. We met with the District Advisory Council, I believe, last week, and we proposed on the bylaws to expand the leadership, essentially, the individuals who set the agenda. And so what we proposed in the bylaws was for 2 of the DAC members, so these are members that are either appointed by our board members or they are SAC members. They will serve as co-chairs, and they will work with the chair and the superintendent on arranging what the agendas will look like when we meet 4 times a year. The goal is for this to have the community lead the discussions, and they do advise the board. And one of the thoughts was that previously with the bylaws, the superintendent and the board chair served as the chairs of the DAC, and serving as an advisory committee for the board. We were hoping to expand more leadership within the community by having the 2 co-chairs. So it will really be 4 people focusing on the discussion topics, but we want to make sure that the 2 co-chairs from DAC have this control over the important things to them within the community. So I would like to recommend that the board approve the amendments of the DAC bylaws as presented. And there are also, I apologize, but there were some minor edits to just the changes in the schools, and you can see it in the strikeouts.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Simon. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Certain. Do I have any public comment? Yes.
Me again. I just had a question about some of the school blocks. Dr. Simon said, with the removal of Duval and Waldo, it looked like that school block was a little light. I know nothing about DAC. I'm trying to look at it. It looked like a lot of the elementary schools, the middle schools, and high school, it kind of clustered by area and then by feeder. So my question was, I saw in one of the blocks, I believe it was Pam Lofton, they were with the west side, which has an extreme overpopulation right now in their schools. Would that be better, shifting that down into the Hawthorne, Shell, and I can't remember the other 2. I understand it probably, the idea was that you would have a high school, a middle school, and an elementary representing each block. But with that amount of elementary students coming in, I think if I did my math from back in COVID world, we had about 7,000 high school, middles around 5 that were enrolled, and elementary school was, I think, around 7,000 students. So we have a lot of elementary schools coming up. I think there might have been more. Should they have a different, or not more representation, but there's so many kids coming up and so many schools in that side of town. I was just curious if a shift in blocks would be good.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Simon, I'm thinking that maybe Ms. Johnson could be somebody to answer that. Would that be? So if you would get your information to Ms. Johnson right here, she'll try to answer those questions for you. Thank you very much. Any other public input? Okay, thank you. Board comments or questions? Anyone?
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Paulson, then Ms. Surd.
Well, anyway, this was my idea with Mrs. Hollander. And I think I'm okay with the expansion of the leadership. But the reason we even made this was to have something that could talk to the board. That was the original intent. Now, you could do the same thing before. I mean, I wanted to combine Lofton with Eastside and stuff like that. And but I still think I see the point of expanding it. You'll get good information, and maybe people that wouldn't be willing to talk are going to talk now, Dr. Simon. that could be, so I could see that. So as far as, I think we really need to look and see what really, why we have divided it the way we have. Not saying no, but I think it's something that needs to be looked into closely, and why we did it. Because I don't, I didn't say anything about how to do it like that. But, we want to make sure people do have their voice at all levels. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Does that make sense to you? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Paulson. Ms. Certain.
Never mind, Mr. Hyatt, go ahead.
Okay. Any other board members have a comment? Okay, in that case, we'll vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, we're now back to citizen input. We have 2 minutes per citizen, and the next up is Rhonda Lewis, if Rhonda Lewis is still here. Okay. Okay, I hope I get this right. Doreen Morrow?
Good evening, thank you. I'd like to speak to a couple of the items that some others spoke to earlier today. For one, that lovely high school student who spoke about mental health professionals possibly being available for students within the school. And I thought perhaps maybe that person could be shared with teachers. In addition to that, I'd like to talk about what some others talked about, working a second job. And I work a second job, approximately 10, 12, sometimes 12, sometimes 15 hours a week. But my employer won't pay me for those hours. I'm a teacher, and that's pretty standard for most teachers. 10, 12, 15 hours above and beyond our contract hours. And I know we'll never get paid for that. Those are not my volunteer hours. Those are the hours that are required in order to meet my responsibilities as a teacher. But I would hope that my employer might at least consider giving me a fair raise, which I don't believe has been offered to this point. So that is all I have to say for today. I like being a teacher. I love being a teacher. Soon I will retire, and I'm very concerned about the future of education and whether teachers will really want to continue to do this work, because I know we're committed to the success of every student, but we need the teachers. And we need good teachers, and we need them to want to teach. And we need them to be able to teach, to be able to afford to teach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Nathaniel Williams.
Hello, I'm just here on the raise. I really think that you guys should consider what Dr. Testman and the team are proposing, because we work very hard, not just the teachers, but the non-support staff. And it's been really hard, and the cost of living is going up, and our pay is not. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next is Diego Bermudez. Mr. Bermudez? No? Shannon McGregor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time and attention. I'm new to your county. I've only been here since September last year, but I'm not new to education. I came from Volusia County, so I have over 22 years' experience before I came here. I bought a house here in your community, so I'm now a part of your community now. I chose that. And when I moved from Volusia County Schools, my pay went down. I'm making less money. And then unfortunately, I recently lost my husband. So now I've had another loss. I love my job. I go every day and I do the best I can. And I'm investing in you, in your community, and these children, and I want you to invest in me. And also I think about the future, like this other teacher was saying. Who is going to replace me and all these other committed paraprofessionals and school bus drivers and people that work in the cafeteria and the office and the teachers? How will you attract and retain good people if the level of money is not there? That's so very important because we want to invest in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, I don't have any other written requests, and so I'm assuming we're all done with public comment. If you've already spoken to this. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Oh, okay, we're back with the phones. Great. Super.
I work for Alachua County Transportation, and since you all have, since it came to the point where.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you give us your name and we'll start
I'm sorry.
we'll start your 2 minutes again.
Okay, my name is Rosetta Branch Haynes. I work for Transportation, Alachua County. And since it's not required for the kids to wear a mask, so therefore our supply of masks have stopped. But now the kids are asking for masks. Every morning they get on the bus, they want masks. But now our supply is limited because it's not required. Is it any kind of way that you all can continue to supply masks? Because a lot of the kids, their families, they can't supply the masks for them, but they're asking for masks every day. And our supply is very low, to the point where we don't have the masks to even give them, even though it's not required, they're asking. And we're to the point where we don't have the supply to give them what they're asking for. Right. So would you all consider to continue to give us masks for those? Because we tell them, you don't have to wear the mask. And they say, but we want masks. What are we to tell them? That's number one. Number two, as bus drivers and aides, I'm gonna hurry up, bus drivers and aides, we wear many hats. We're the first people that your kids see in the morning after they leave home, and the last ones they see when they leave the school. So we are punching bags, we are shields, we are counselors, we're more than just the invite that you give us when we're hired as CDLs and high school diplomas. We are much more, we wear so many hats. So please, please take and be humble, and at least coming up to the minimum wage, just as McDonald's and Wawa of the $15 or more. Or the incentive to bring in the people that are needed with experience to carry the cargo, the precious cargo, back and forth to school. Please take in consideration, because we work hard. And we love the kids. We love what we do, or we wouldn't be here to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coles, I was wondering if you might look into our situation with having more masks available for the buses and see where we are on that. Thank you for bringing that up. Ms. McCann.
Good evening. Thank you, Board Chair, board members, Superintendent Simon. I'm Karen McCann. I want to address Ms. Russell's concern about the assistant principal at the E-School. Ed Stephenson was a highly respected, loved principal at E-School. Ed Stephenson left. Primarily, one of the biggest reasons was because he lost his assistant principal. 2,900 kids have to be registered. There's paperwork that has to be done. When Ed Stephenson left, Mallory Becker was moved into his position, leaving GHS with 3 brand-new principals. And I think many of you have heard from teachers at GHS. It is a disaster there, a total disaster. So, in essence, what I like to say is, take a look at who's gotten hired. Somebody got hired at the district office with very little experience. It was a political favor. Got hired with little experience at over $104,000 a year, and yet your teachers and ESPs are here begging because they can't survive on what they're making. Thank you.
Thank you. Phone call, please. We'll have 2 minutes.
Caller, go ahead. You have 2 minutes with the board.
Thank you. My name is Mark Shapiro. I work at Sidney Lanier, and my my theory on what I want to say is, why are there so many paraprofessional positions open and over the years and I believe it's because of the hourly rate of pay. It's not competitive to other businesses and companies that pay a 40-hour work week, and they have benefits too. I realize the logistics are different, so therefore the hourly pay should increase so it could be competitive to the rest of the county. And this way it would make it more beneficial to employees who want a career in the school system. And you could, look at your own family, and if you would want someone member to find what they can do, if that'd be something that they should pursue. So that is my opinion. And plus, we all deal with I deal with special kids, and sometimes you get hit or kicked or spit on or cursed. And we everyone who works in this position can relate to that. And plus with the COVID and dealing with all these things of being safe, I feel, it's you have to make it really attractive to keep this business going. And so that's my opinion, and I hope you could understand it. So like we all deal with in the classroom, and including our bus drivers who take the kids home and back to us. We're all in this together, and with that foundation of support.
Mr. Chair, we're at 2 minutes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. And our next caller.
Caller, go ahead. You have 2 minutes with the board.
Good evening, Chairman Hyatt. This is Lisa Green. Let me start off by saying what a wonderful young man Stephen is, who handles all of the calls. He has a very thankless job, and he is doing an amazing job at keeping us entertained and humored while we're waiting for such a long time. There are many things I would normally like to address, but my biggest thing, and if you take nothing away from tonight, I want each and every one of you sitting up there, listen to the bus drivers. Listen to them, hear them, meet with them. Make them a priority. Without our bus drivers getting the majority of students to these schools, everything else that you are doing is for naught. We have teachers saying that they have students for weeks at a time getting to school 90 minutes late. 90, an hour and a half of lost instruction time. Do you know what that does to students? To teachers, you say education matters. Let's make this matter, because without these drivers getting these kids to these schools, nothing else you are putting into place will matter. Listen to them, hear them. This is the house that's on fire right now. Discipline and the COVID excuse, we're done with that. Stop blaming COVID. We're past that. The unruliness of kids on the buses, these drivers have to put up with so much. I encourage every single one of you sitting up there, go ride with these drivers for one day, and then get back to us on you not listening, turning an ear to them, hear them. We know some of y'all are in these rooms and you're reading what these drivers are saying. They are begging to be heard. Back them up. You are only as good as the weakest link in the chain. Stop treating them, custodians, and the other school personnel like they are
Mr.
second
Chair,
class.
we're at 2 minutes.
Thank you for your time. Listen to your drivers, please.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more calls? One more, thank you.
Caller, go ahead. You have 2 minutes with the board.
Hi, thank you. My name is Danielle, and I'm a teacher in Alachua County, speaking to you about our pay increase. First of all, I just want to say I know this is a difficult time for all of us, and I thank you for all that you do as our board. I also want to say that I understand that we have less students enrolled in public schools now than we've had in the past. However, we also have less teachers in Alachua County to pay. At my school, C.B. Parker Elementary, we have around 4 empty classrooms that had previously been filled with both students and teachers. We also have 2 full-time subs filling in because we're not able to find enough certified and experienced teachers to take those positions on the pay that is offered. Teachers are fleeing their preferred occupations because the workload that we are expected to carry continues to multiply each year while our salary just inches forward. And if a teacher never marries a spouse to take the financial weight off, we can't save up for things like a down payment on a house. I have to live with my grandmother in order to save money. Another single teacher I know lives with her mother to save up. A single parent I know will be finding a non-teaching job soon so that she can adequately provide for her own children. And a lot of times we as teachers feel like we're the ones who are getting the bachelor's and the master's and even doctorates so that we can educate the children in this country and then help them to provide for their families in the future and literally run our economy. Yet we as teachers can't provide for ours. On the other hand, money is not always allocated appropriately. For example, near the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year, touchscreen monitors appeared on the desks of every teacher in my school, and I suspect every teacher in the county. Yet we already had monitors. We never asked for new monitors. We did not need them. We needed pencils and dry erase markers and decent pay. Nearly every year, the county
Mr. Chair, we're at 2 minutes.
a new curriculum, even if the new curriculum is working out well. So I just want to remind everyone that the single most valuable resource that Alachua County has is its human element. It's the teachers, the custodians, the bus drivers, the paraprofessionals, and the cafeteria workers. And this county can't run without us. We need to have decent pay so that we can stay doing what we love. We can serve the kids we love. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any more? One more, and that's going to be our last. Well, we'll wait and see.
Caller, go ahead. You have 2 minutes with the board.
Hi, this is Dr. Sarah Rockwell. Thank you, Chairman Hyatt, board members, and Dr. Simon for giving me the chance to speak. I was trying to call in earlier during the action items, but the phone lines were down. And I know that you've already passed them, but I'm hoping that you can make some changes and have another vote at a later board meeting on the staff allocations for Alachua eSchool. Alachua eSchool has over 900 full-time and over 2,000 part-time students, and that number could have been more had school counselors not incorrectly assigned part-time students to FLVS, and had they not capped full-time enrollment for the first time ever due to a lack of administrative staff and teachers. It's also my understanding that eSchool operated at a profit last year and is projected to do so this year. We are still operating during a global pandemic. Students who are at heightened medical risk or have a family member at risk need Alachua eSchool. It's their only remote learning option that keeps funding within our district. At this time, we should be trying to make eSchool more robust and desirable to keep funding within our district, and the allocations proposed do the opposite. It's baffling to me that eSchool isn't being adequately staffed. It's unacceptable that the position of assistant principal is being cut despite schools of similar full-time enrollment getting 2 assistant principals. Similarly, eSchool is only allocated 1 counselor despite schools of similar size having 2. It's also unacceptable that eSchool does not have an allocation for any support staff like a database clerk or admin assistant, even though other schools and centers have those staff members. I also see no allocations for instructional staff for eSchool. This seems to be a grave oversight and one that I hope you will consider
Chair, we're at
rectifying.
2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Okay, that concludes the callers. Thank you. Do I have anyone else that hasn't spoken that would like to speak right now? If you haven't spoken for the general input, please go ahead. State your name. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Lisa Madola. I'm a teacher in Alachua County, and I'm an ACEA member. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Simons. I'm not here for myself. I'm here for my wonderful, hardworking paraprofessionals and for my fellow teachers who are dedicated to their career in Alachua County schools. They just want a decent raise. They deserve a decent raise. Many of my teacher friends have left Alachua County schools for better paying jobs. Some moved to other counties, some moved to other states, and some, 2 of my friends went to nursing school. Several work 2 or even 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and most of those have families. I love Alachua County schools. I love my school. I love my students. You need to pay teachers and paraprofessionals and all of the other hardworking, dedicated people that work in this school system better wages. They deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have anyone else from the audience? Go ahead, please.
Hello, my name is Nancy Mason. I'm a bus driver, and I'm here to support teachers, staff, ESPs, everybody. When I did the math about what we were being offered as raises, for a part-time person that was worked 4 hours, that's 80 cents a day. For a full-time person, that was $1.60 a day. I mean, if you look at gas and you look at food prices, I mean, I used an example. At the end of the week, the cafeteria worker could buy a loaf of bread. They could not buy anything to put on it. A full-time person, they can buy a cheap pack of hot dogs and a pack of hot dog rolls. I mean, it's I understand we're all under stress, but this is probably I've been here 13 years, and this is probably the hardest we've worked. I mean, not only bus drivers, paras, teachers, everybody's working so hard. We're all we're working for each other. We're covering other people, I drive an ESE bus, but I still pick up other regular children 2 and 3 routes a week, whoever I see along the road. So I would ask you to consider giving a better raise. It did take me 10 years. I come from St. Lucie County. It took me 10 years to catch up to what I was making there when I came here 10 years ago. But I did know I came to this district that I would be making less. And I do appreciate the fact that, Dr. Simon, that we were just reclassified, but I believe we were only done that because you've got to be able to keep the CDL drivers. We have people going, they're dump truck drivers, and, well, we all know that story. So I tell people we're like the nurses. We're high demand only because of the, the need for us. But thank you. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate the board. I think, you guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, any further comments by anyone who hasn't spoken? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Hutchison, and I was
Wasn't gonna say anything, but, because I was a little nervous, but I just want to say I'm a para in the county. And I just want to say that we deserve more money. I'm just gonna go ahead and put my business out there. I bring home $625 every 2 weeks. And I share it with my husband. If I didn't have you, who has a really good, decent job, I would be like my coworkers, working a second job. But thankfully enough that I don't have to do that. But then it made me really sad to know that I had coworkers that had to leave from the school to go and work a second job when I can leave the school and go home. So I just want to say that we do deserve the raise and, a better raise. We really do. I'm going to pat myself on the back because I'm good at what I do, and I know I am. I'm very good at what I do, and I love what I do, and I love working with the children. So just please consider the raise, a better raise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have anyone else that wanted to speak tonight? Okay, in that case, public input is over for tonight. But remember, please write us emails, and you can write to all board members together, and that way, you don't think you can only. We love having you here on a Tuesday night, but you don't have to wait to a Tuesday to let us know what you're thinking. Okay, next we're going to have board member superintendent requests, starting with Dr. Paulson.
I've been waiting for this. And I said, I put this out 2 weeks ago. You want to start that I think we can get money right now. We have a strategic plan. It didn't cost us anything. It's a living document, and we could we have goals that they don't expire. We could use them. But at the same time, we still have that, but it didn't cost any money. And right now, last meeting, and I'm sorry I have to bring this up, last meeting, I know I heard it right, we budgeted $250,000 for a strategic plan. We don't need to do that. We got the strategic plan we've got, right there, that's $250,000. And it can be used for other things. If it's the ESSER funds, Mr. Rella would have to tell me exactly what it could be used for, but I think it could be used for salaries or replace something else that we want to. So you want some money right now? There you go. Does that make sense? And I've said this to, I like ACEA. I used to be the president for 13 years. I like employees. But there's some money right there. That makes sense? I've been waiting all night to say that. And I'm not going to, when I believe in something, I don't let go. So that's something. Then we sit down and we could look at other places and where we could work on getting raises. I will brag about us because we are ranked 21st in the state for teachers, but we could be more. And we have a goal of at least being at 1350, and we're not past 1220 right now for the ESPs, which puts us among the top 5 counties in the state. But we got to do better. I know the economy's not what it was a year or two ago either. You come across loud and clear. But anyway, I don't like putting people on the spot, but I'll tell you right now, that money, I have been against that money. That's just too much money. It can be used for other things. So maybe that'd give you a little relief. And then we could look at other places. All right. So but we got to all get together and get to go. Remember our goal 2 years ago when we went to 12.20, which is median, minimum wage? We said this year we should be at 13.50. But again, Mr. Rella's not a miracle worker. I will give him that much. I'm going to put him on the spot. But we could look together and see how we could do things and where we could do it. We don't need to go backwards. We came from 58th in the state 6 years ago, ranked to 20th right now for teachers. Now, that's still not great, but remember, we're in Florida, and Florida's not the best paying state in the United States. But we need to get as much as we can for you. And I've spent the last 25 years doing that for you.
Well, Dr. Paulson, I
So I
do.
think I've given us a way to do this,
Okay.
and am I putting people on the spot?
Well,
That's fine.
I'm concerned about making sure we're not doing anything in public that we shouldn't. And Mr. Delaney, are we still on the rails here?
The law is pretty specific that the bargaining process needs to take place in bargaining sessions. So I think it's appropriate and allowable for board members to express their support and appreciation for employees and hearing their concerns. Anything that would veer over into bargaining proposals is getting right up to the line, and we need to be very cautious to avoid doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Please go ahead, Dr. Paulson.
Well, I just feel so strong about that. That's all. I mean, and if I get in trouble, I'll get in trouble for the employees.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Surton?
Thank you. I'd like to make the request, because I don't want it to be said later that something was said that we're not going to do the strategic planning process. We voted for that RFP to go out a week ago, and I think it was issued on Monday, open to the public. And the set aside and for that amount is, as Dr. Paulson said, but so my request is that we continue to move forward with the RFP that has been put out to secure guidance on doing strategic planning. I think that is what we agreed to as a board, and that's what was voted on in the last meeting. So I don't want it to be said later that this request, like we're putting that to the side. I am for us going through the collective bargaining process, but I also think that the strategic planning initiative needs to proceed forward. And unfortunately, there is a cost to things, but as with other grants and budgets that we have, even our own operational budget, when we don't spend in one particular category, Mr. Rella will bring to us on our agenda an amendment, and that is something that we would then revise down our spending. But a budget is just, the funds were set aside. It doesn't mean that we can't spend any more than that, and if we don't, that doesn't mean that we will spend all of it, but that is the limit of that we will spend on that particular item. So my request, my board member request, is that we continue going forward with what we voted on in the last meeting.
Can I answer that? Please.
Hold on. Well, Dr. Paulson, I'd be happy to recognize you again. Sure, go ahead. But
My point is, we don't have to do it. We've never done it. I think it's a ridiculous amount of money to be spending for strategic plan. We have a very good strategic plan that's done a lot of good things. And, excuse me.
if you could please turn off thank you.
We don't need to spend we don't need to budget it. It's too much money, and it's taking money out of our employees. So that's my point. And it's the thing about it is, we don't have to. I remember when I thought something got rescinded a couple of years ago. And it's just, it's sound fiscal policy not to spend that much money.
Okay, Dr. Paulson, I think when we're having board member requests, you were very clear and very strong in what you wanted. Ms. Surton was clear and strong in her point, and I'd rather, for this part of a meeting, not to go back and forth, and I appreciate that. Any other board members have a request? Dr. Simon?
Yes, thank you. I have two things. We've spent this meeting talking about how valuable staff members are, and that's from our ESPs to our teachers, and actually, I believe our administrators as well. I think it's very important to let the administrators at GHS know that we are in support of them. I understand that individuals would like to come and critique me, and I welcome that. But please do not critique 3 individuals who are new to our district, who are working very hard to support our schools. They are trying to lead change during the most challenging time in education. And for individuals from education to criticize in public, I'm sorry for them. That was unfortunate that you were spoken to that way. And I know that Mr. Shelnut is a rock star, and filling his shoes are incredibly challenging. But I believe this administration is going to do a great job. And if you have a concern, I'd like you to take it up with me, and we can talk about that. But I don't believe we need to treat people like that, especially right now. My next thing I would like to talk about, because we're on the dais, and because one of the things I'm trying to do is work on my response to the board member evaluations, is I received feedback in the evaluations about communication and some concerns that communication with board members was not consistent across the board. One of the things that I would like, because we have limited time, we're able to discuss these things. I believe we need to have this discussion now when we're in the public so we can make sure that I understand what you all are wanting, because I plan on putting this in my response, so I am addressing your concerns. And I also want you all to understand that I'm interested in consistency when I respond to each of you, and I think this is the best venue for us to have this discussion as far as how you would like to be communicated with, so you also feel that you're getting that same treatment with each other. So first, if you wouldn't mind, if we could field some questions associated with how often would board members like to meet with the superintendent and staff on a regular basis to just discuss board topics in general? I know that I have regular biweekly meetings with a few of you all, and they've been a little scattered this last month due to you all being in Tallahassee and me being at a conference, but I want to make sure that we have these regular visits. And so I was hoping you could share this information as far as how you would like to meet. I also would like to know some of the information that you suggested. I guess I'm wanting to know what type of information would board members like to know prior to the public, because I do see our board meetings are the place for us to have these conversations together. I want to make sure that I am giving you the right amount of information, and so if we can have that discussion. I also would like to know in our one-on-one meetings, what is effective and how would you like me to improve those? I think this would help us to function better. I also, because of a comment specifically associated with communication of board members to staff, we have policy that has guidelines of how the board should communicate with staff by going through the superintendent and staff through the superintendent to go to the board. I was wondering, it did seem to be a concern. It was actually something highlighted in the evaluation. So I want my staff to also understand how to communicate. I think they should go through the board or through the superintendent, but I do know that you all want to be informed. And so I think this might be a good time for us to discuss how we think that should look, with also making sure that we're following board policy. And I know it's been a long night, but I do want to make sure when I respond that I'm able to get this clarification. And I do think because having individual meetings with you all, you're not able to hear how each other would prefer to communicate. And I am very much focused on having the consistency with you all, and you also feel that you're being treated equally. So thank you.
Well, I would agree with one thing, that it has been a very long meeting. So I don't know that, I think we all wrote evaluations. I don't know that there's any particular help in going through this now. I think all of our evaluations are public, and we've certainly met, and I'm happy to go over every individual thing with you if you'd like. I don't see a whole lot of value in going through this one at a time here from the dais.
From my vantage point, one of the things I did read in the evaluations was a suspicion of feeling that you were treated different than other board members. And when we only meet individually, then that doesn't resolve that feeling, because we don't get to have these types of discussions on how to do this. And you have voiced that you're concerned about it, but one of the things that I was hoping to see in the evaluations were steps that you would like me to take in order to resolve this. And I sit on the Children's Trust Board, and we had the evaluation of the executive director there. And in one of the things that I thought was quite effective was he came up with suggestions for how he would improve to meet the board's needs. And I'm hoping to have that opportunity, because I feel very much as though the evaluations were given to me without an explanation of certain things on how I could improve. And I do want to make sure that I get that feedback, because I'm very much interested in supporting the board and the efforts. And I definitely want you all to feel that you're getting the same treatment from me, and I'm not sure you do. And so I think this is, in the public forum, is where we can have these conversations, because we can't do this anywhere else in order to follow sunshine.
There is no sunshine violation speaking one-on-one. And so I'm not sure how we can't do this anywhere else. It hasn't ever happened before. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but I'm going to go ahead, and I've got, I think, a full array of lights here. So let's start with Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Chairman Hyatt. I happened to be at the Children's Trust meeting last night for another matter dealing with an RFP. And it was very interesting to see what Dr. Simon just stated. I think there were 10 people on their board, and every single person had an opportunity to say to the executive director, Colin Murphy, what they needed for improvements in. There were quite a few. And they took the time not only to speak privately with him, but they took the time last evening to speak so everyone could hear the explanations. To me, and I'm not a member of that board, have nothing to do, just was there as a citizen. But it gave me insight as to what every single person thought of the ED and how they wanted that person to improve. And it took time, Chairman Hyatt, but it was so pertinent And the other citizens that were in that meeting, like I was, they could understand other than just reading it publicly, like we have our superintendent's evaluation publicly. They could hear the individuals talking back and forth with the person in charge of Children's Trust. I think it would not only help us if we took that measure, but it would also lend what the superintendent was saying back to each of us. Whatever it was, it's taken, the evaluation is taken not as a punitive measure, but there were some things there that he had to hear that that board thought of. I think it's a good measure, a good thing for us. I would love to know what my colleague sitting next to me feels about what she wrote. And you may want to know, why did I rate the superintendent the way I did? And I would hope that you would want to hear what I had to say about her work ethics, performance, whatever. Just like I want to hear, I'd give anything to hear which all four of you would have to say to the superintendent and what she would have to say back. Dr. Simon, I did not write those things down that you were saying tonight, but as you said it, as you said each one, I was thinking, I have an answer. I could say what I think, and I think you should have that right to know and the public to know. I had people, Mr. Chair, to call to say, why was your measurement, your evaluation different from the other four? And at that time, I had not read the other four. So I didn't really have, I said, you have to let me see what the other four, but we have no way, like Mr. Attorney Delaney would say, I can't call Ms. Russell and talk about it. But if we did it in this open forum, I would know what she felt and she would know about mine, my evaluation. I think that's fair. And I think we owe it to the public. We owe it to the citizens. And the other things, if the chair is going to give us an opportunity to do that, I don't know how well, I do know how he's thinking. It has been a long day, even longer for me when I started this morning. But I'm willing to talk to you right now. And anything that you would have to ask me privately or publicly, I would say no reservation whatsoever. That's what I wanted to say, Chairman Hyatt.
So I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, sir. Take it as a yes.
Yeah, I really am not thinking this is for the best thing. I really don't want to have hours of going back and forth. But I do have, like I said, I have a bunch of lights on here, so Ms. Russell.
Thank you, Chairman Hyatt. I do agree that I think some things have to be addressed here in the public just because of the policy that dictates what we do about the evaluations. But I didn't understand everything either that you said, so you may have to go over it again. But one thing that stood out, what do you mean about talking the way the board, or if you want the board to talk to the staff, are you talking about the district staff?
So we have policy that actually dictates how staff members can speak with board members about district business. And it is outlined, and that would be, it really is actually all staff across the district. But one of the things that I know when I came in were, and it still is a thing where, board members are calling staff members directly. Some staff will let me know what the conversation was and some didn't. And so just in order to run the organization, this is a board policy that's been put in place and the guidelines are there. I do know, because we run into just, how to operate the organization and how to communicate well, that what we are trying to do with our chiefs specifically, and obviously like Ms. Green and Ms. Peck, that when they are having conversations with board members and you ask something specific, you keep me in the loop. The other thing on top of this, which is also something that we've been trying to do as well, is many times board members ask a staff member something direct, and because of sunshine, they aren't sending the email to the board. But we don't want the board members who didn't send this email not to have access to the same information. So what we've been trying to do internally is, if Ms. Certain asks Mr. Rella a question, Mr. Rella's response goes to all of you. So you're all trying to get the exact same type of information. And I understand the frustration, because I know as board members, you would like to be able to talk to a staff member directly and get the information, but it doesn't align with the policy. And I don't know if this also means maybe this is a policy, I believe you and I even spoke about it, like, does this policy need to be addressed? On some level, board members should be able to have access to staff members. On another level, the superintendent should know what communication from staff is going to board members in order to make sure that, one, the information is accurate, and all board members as well are having access to the same information. So it's very complicated to make sure that we do this well. And I know that you all have been frustrated with parts of this policy, and I have been frustrated as well. And that's why it's helpful for us to have these talks.
Right. Well, we've been over this before, you and I and Mr. Delaney, about the policy, and there is actually a state statute. We can talk to whomever we want to, basically. I understand the courtesy of letting you know if we're going to talk to someone in the district, Mr. Rella, Ms. Wise, or whatever, to say, I'm going to talk to this person about curriculum or whatever, I'm going to make an appointment. But I think, too, one of the things that I saw and I know it came from you, I don't know whether it came from the conference you did or whatever, but one of the things that was pointed out was that you tend to micromanage. And I think maybe that's part of this. I mean, we, as board members, and I agree too, if we ask something that all board members need to know, like somebody requested the monthly reports that Mr. Rella sends out to all of us, and that's wonderful, and that's the way it should work, that we all have the same information, but we can't, talk about it in emails to each other. So, I don't know, that policy, that when I think of doing the business of the district, the first thing that came to my mind was facilities, and are we going to have vending machines in the lobbies and all that kind of stuff. It's not finding out. We can't make policy or set direction if we don't know what teachers and principals need and want and what parents are thinking. So I don't see a conflict with that policy. I discussed it with Mr. Delaney. He said we can talk to teachers, principals, visit schools anytime we want to. And so as far as district staff, I understand the complication with having them do things that take up a lot of time. But as board members, we should be able to ask for information that we need to inform ourselves about things we're going to vote on and make decisions about. That just seems logical. And for you to know about, I mean, it doesn't have to be a secret. I mean, for you to know about it is fine, but I mean, if everybody's looking for us to set policy and give direction, then we should be able to find out what we need to know to do that, is my personal feeling about it.
So as far as the evaluation, I believe that was Mr. Hyatt that said I was micromanaging. When I did begin, there were times that district staff were having conversations with the superintendent, and she did not know what those conversations were about. And those conversations did influence board votes. And that is one of the reasons why this policy exists. Now, I would be happy to sit with Mr. Delaney and Ms. Turney to review our policies and provide suggestions for you all to feel that you're able to get that feedback. But it's incredibly important for the superintendent to understand what staff members are saying to board members, specifically for items that are voted on. And I think it's also extremely important that the conversations that you have, that would be something voted on, the other board members are also privy to that same exact information, because all of this information influences your votes. And if you do not have access to the same information, then there is going to be a discrepancy in the ability for the board to do the best business for the community.
Dr. Paulson.
Oh, that was quick, wasn't it?
Okay. Ms. Surd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I jotted down the questions that you said you wanted answers to. Biweekly works for me. I'd like to try to be in person, but on occasion I may have to do it by Zoom. The type of information that I want from staff, type of information board members want to know before the public. I really like to be kept in the loop and not to get a call or to be stopped by someone in the community and told something. So really just keeping me abreast of that. And I feel that, you know, on most things, most of the time that's happened during your tenure. So, yes. And in our one-on-one meetings, what do I think is effective and how can you improve in this way? I think, you know, as board members, we tell you collectively, we have to agree on an agenda and what the priorities and the things that we want you to do, the what. And by statute, your task through working with your staff of determining the how to get to those, to achieve those initiatives. And I know there's a lot of meeting that goes on, and also I would like, when we meet one-on-one, that we get, of course, financial updates, and if there's anything that's coming down the pipeline that we should be made aware of, any alerts that, but as well as an update on status things, so we don't just see them or read about them, because in our packets. And
Sorry, could you repeat that last part one more time? Staff decisions?
yeah, like if you've gotten a recommendation from staff or an update from staff on the initiatives that you guys are pursuing, just to kind of keep us in the loop so that we have periodic updates versus just seeing them when they make it to our board packet.
Can those be at the biweekly meetings, or are you wanting a phone call?
No, you can do that that's what I like in my one-on-one meetings, that's what I'm saying. And as far as communicating with staff, I think if it's like a small one-off question, yes or no, I would like to be able to go directly to staff. But if it's something that like a lot of my questions have in the past since I've been on, that would take staff time to research and to compile the information, I don't have a problem with sending that to you. So that's it. So quickly.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Surden. I find the whole process sort of interesting in that if you really wanted us to be ready to roll with this, you might have given us a hint. This is what you wanted tonight. Before I wrote my evaluation, I printed about 20 pages, give or take, of emails to review our conversations. I think the way they were printed, it was weird. I don't know if it was 20 pages of information, but that's the way it printed. And because I didn't want to trust my memory exactly in something as serious as this evaluation. And if you insist on examples, I'll give you a couple of examples. But first, I'll say that I certainly, since becoming chair, Dr. Simon and I have communicated well. I said that in the evaluation. maybe not quite as well before that. One example, driving by headquarters here, I see on the marquee, HR director being hired. Okay, well, I'd never heard about the HR director being hired. I was told that the person who left the assistant superintendent's position for HR was on a temporary assignment and was going to be back. And so imagine my surprise not to know about this position, but to see it on a marquee. And then when I asked about it, I was told, well, oh no, that's a different position. And so when we have, you know, I don't know that it's a requirement of a superintendent, but I know that every superintendent that I've worked with, if there was a big hire or something happening, I knew about it. I don't think I was a special board member. I think all board members were consulted. And maybe the superintendent liked our idea, maybe they didn't. But it's just sort of a surprise. One morning I get a call from a newspaper reporter and wants to know my reaction to third grade test scores. Well, I'll say, well, you know, sorry, haven't been informed of this. And so hard to react when you don't know. And that's the sort of thing that really has to be, that board members need to know. When I found out in this boardroom that, or maybe I'm not sure I heard these words in this boardroom, but I've heard them, that a new school in Hawthorne, a K-12, was a top 5 priority of the district. Well, it has nothing to do with being chair. Any one of the 5 of us should know if something is a top 5 priority. So these are things that, again, I wasn't, you know, prepared, because I would have liked to have brought my 20 pages of emails if we were going to do this. But I feel like there's been certainly a difficulty in just getting information. I think the least of it is dealing with staff. And I would ask anyone, if you're allowed, to talk with any staff member and ask them if I ever requested them to do something behind the back of the superintendent, or to do something that would take any kind of a large amount of work. But I think board members need to be able to get information. And I agree with the superintendent that the superintendent should know, but it's to the point where it's almost picayune details, something that I needed to know. And I think, as was pointed out, if anything that I ask, if any board member was actually interested in that, then I would be, I don't think it would be that exciting, but I would be fine with them knowing. So if there's a need to come up with a more extensive list or explanation, when I wrote this evaluation, my point, you know, one of my efforts was not to drag people through the mud and just write it based on my memory and based on my written records. But it seems like that doesn't work, because we need to, you know, that maybe that doesn't make good press. But I will go back to what I said last week, in that my evaluation speaks for itself. I'm not interested in a public fight or argument or anything like that. So hopefully that's an example. If we need to have, maybe we need to, I'm not sure exactly. Again, I think this is sort of, I'm not sure of the point. I heard your point, but if this were on the agenda, I would have a stack of papers, and you would all be bored to tears. So anyway.
Mr. Hyatt?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I don't, my intent was for you not to receive it in the way I'm concerned that you did. My intent is to understand the protocol that you all would like. I understand that you have concerns of the past and you felt that it didn't address what you wanted. I want to know moving forward what you would like this experience to look like.
Okay, well, I would say that the question was posed in a way where you were asking about the past. You were asking about how why did we write what we wrote?
No,
And so so to quickly move forward, I would say I expect, not for me, but for every board member, to know things, if at all possible. It's not always possible. At least at the same time as the public. Hopefully before that. Sometimes I found out things through a blast call to the district. So, that needs to improve, and that's, and so if we're talking about what are we going to do moving forward, well, moving forward, we're fixing those things that weren't working before. So, and again, I think that I think we've had a good conversation and good phone calls and good personal meetings for the last couple of months, and I appreciate that. So for me, I think there needs to be. I think we already have a clearer communication that you call when you need to call, and I call when I need to call, and I think probably every other week is at least what we need to do, and I'm willing to do more than that if that's helpful.
So just one more point, because I understand the public concern, and I don't need an answer today, but I think it's something for the board. I would appreciate your thoughts on it, because one of the things that we are running into, specifically with social media, specifically with just how fast information gets out and circulates, and honestly, the numbers of decisions that need to be made every single day to manage the organization. Some things may have come to you with the public telling you something before I could, but honestly, around here, very easily, like, if the word is said in the office, it is out the building by the time somebody turns around. I mean, news travels so fast. So we tell you, and I try to tell you things that are important that I think you want to know as quickly as I possibly can, but racing against social media and the public, and sometimes many of the things that we have, we can easily have something that is totally worthy of the board being notified, and then all these other things occurring at the exact same time, which either requires us to split and divide and try to make sure that we're keeping you in the loop. And I know one of the things you guys got notice of today, but other things are going on at the same time. So I want you to understand that we are, and I am, very much focused on improving the communication with you all. But I will tell you, unfortunately, sometimes I just cannot get ahead of what happens on social media and discussions. I mean, I know that we had a staff situation where a staff member called the press before we had any chance of getting to you all, and that was unfortunate, but that was just something that we found out when you found out that the press was called. So we do our best. There's always more room for improvement, and so we will focus on that, but I do want to make sure that I have that discussion about public sometimes finds out things before we do.
Well, you know, I think that's a very fair point on some instances. If there's something like what was happening with Hawthorne, that's something that had nothing to do with social media. That's something that again, you know, it was mentioned to me maybe as part of a half-hour conversation. It might have been 30 seconds or a minute. But the scope of what was understood and presented at Hawthorne, that was never, ever brought to me. And then we come back to a meeting here, and it's like, oh, it's treated by some folks as a fait accompli. So yes, there are times, and you are 100% right, that social media, those who use it, sometimes not for the best purposes, and sometimes just repeat misinformation. You see a whole lot of that, and that's our world. That's not Gainesville, Florida. That's our world. So I understand that, but I think there are other things before it ever gets to social media that we could have some control over.
So
Okay.
for Hawthorne, I will say that I don't believe what has been relayed was totally accurate. I have talked to all of you all about my concerns about the quality of the facilities in Hawthorne, and in my mind, they are high on the priority list, but I know that everything that I have of interest, I have to bring to the 5 of you, and you all have to approve, because otherwise, like, that type of a decision cannot be done. But I do think it's incredibly important, and I have advocated to you. But unfortunately, I think that the message that I was sharing with the Hawthorne community, I'm not sure was the message that was delivered to you with full accuracy. But
Well,
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of different folks, and not one. No, I'm not talking about one person. Okay, Dr. Simon, thank you. Dr. McNeely.
Dr. Simon, if you don't mind, I did say, now you know I have spoken to, and the staff members in here know that I have spoken to them, but even today, Dr. Simon, I said to a staff member, please say this to the superintendent. I'm not trying to hide. In fact, I have nothing to hide from you, nothing. But today was an urgent thing, and I was told by the person I was speaking to, I'm going to handle it, and I'm going to call the superintendent. But right after I hung up with that individual, I called your secretary, and I said, is the superintendent available? Because I preferred you to hear it from me. And she said you were involved in a meeting at that time. But try to come back before board meeting and share the information with you. And whatever Mrs. Green and Mrs. Peck tell me to do, I try to do it. When I see the 95574, I think it's 7545, I get real nervous, because I think that's Jackie Johnson's telephone number. And I know she's calling to share with each board member something that's urgent. And so maybe at that point, when I listen to her, I can't call you, because I have another life too, like you do, and I'm very involved with all kind of things. So I can't discuss that particular item, but yet she, as our PIO, has shared with me, but I want to know some things from you, and sometimes we don't get to that point. But as far as what you asked when you first started talking, I'm all for that. I really am, because I'd like to know what my colleague, Mrs. Russell, thinks, and I hope she wants to know the same from me. That's the way I see the two of us working hand in hand together. As far as we've all talked about, I think all 5 of us have said to you, we much prefer to know from Jackie or Jamar or whomever, rather than hear it in, I was going to say goodwill, in public. And that's where I get most of my notices from the grocery store. And some of them are factual, and some of them are misguided. One of the things that I have asked, and I ask a staff person tonight even, before we sit down with our information in hand to look at presentations, I want to see it before 5 minutes before board meeting. I want to see it before the day of board meeting. And I know it's not on them, but it's to the folk who have to prepare the presentations to present to us. I'd rather have an opportunity to read it before trying to look at the clock before 6, and I was promised that that was going to come to you in the morning, because when I said it, it was right before board meeting. So if that could happen, that would be wonderful. That, I don't know how the other 4 feel, but I'd really like to see it before board meeting time, or the even one day before could help me, but not the day of. And so I think that would help if staff could help you in telling us, even if we don't have it in a packet, telling us that this is going to be on the agenda and how that's going to be, how we're expected it to go forward. I don't know if that's too much to ask of the staff, to see if they could do a little bit better with that. I would appreciate it. And it was one other thing that you asked of us.
So I asked how often you would like to meet.
Oh, I like my schedule, twice a month.
Okay, so
If I need more, I'm going to sit outside of your door until you open it. And because sometimes that's what I need.
And as far as the...
And with refreshments, please.
We'll take care of that. For the presentations, we will definitely work on that. Unfortunately, some of the information, because of how information is coming to us, some of it is not as timely as we would like when we receive it.
Oh, okay.
But we are trying to,
Well-
make sure you have that time, but we can focus on doing more.
Understood. And you had something else, though.
So then I also had, let's see, well, what did you prefer about the one-on-one meetings? You did want them to be biweekly. You've already discussed how you want to communicate with staff, and I think that's probably another future conversation to really look at that policy, because I don't think that policy is meeting your
Dr.
needs.
Simon, every time you've said that to me, I said, yes, ma'am, I understand. And then something urgent like today came up, and I wanted you to handle it if you could, because it had to do with money. And so, and I was invited to come over before this board meeting to talk with you about it, and I got hung up somewhere else. So I do apologize for that.
So I think those are the things that I would like us to think about for the future, because there are some, because of time and because of other things that are going on with the district, we do need to come up with effective systems where you can get something very important to me, but I'm in meetings all the time, and so sometimes things can't be just immediately I'm there to be able to answer. Now, if it's something extremely important, I can get pulled out of a meeting, and that has happened. But these are the things, like, when do you need to talk? Is this something we can put onto the biweekly meeting? If it's something that I need to get to you within 24 hours?
I wish we could have a decision on that. And as far as the media, if I see something in writing, because we get tons of emails per day.
Right.
I will call Mrs. Johnson, because I know she knows, or basically would know. So or if I have read something, I will call. Before I speak to Crab, Harold Gershon, and he called me the other day, the weekend, one of the editors. But I want to call Jackie at least to see, can I say this? What's all this involved? Because the media knows before we know. And so I never want to speak to a reporter until I've said something to you or to Mrs. Johnson. And once she says what the background information is, then I feel all right to speak. You know.
Okay, are we,
I
thought, I heard a pause.
You want to pause?
No, I thought you were done, Dr. McNeely.
Can I ask you something?
Um,
This hasn't been, talk about not staying by the rules. This was a board member request, not something to talk about for an hour. I would stand on my evaluation. It's public, and I don't think we should be sitting here doing this. Yet, you know, Mr. Delaney, is this appropriate?
I think we went to superintendent requests, and the superintendent had some requests for information and
Not for an
feedback from the
hour,
board
though.
member.
This isn't appropriate.
Okay,
We've never, you ever seen this done in the school board? Ever?
The chair wields the gavel, so the chair directs the flow of
well,
information.
I think, Dr. Paulson, you've made your point. I think I've made my point. I think everybody had a chance to speak. I do, you know, again, if this should have been on the agenda, it should have been on the agenda. And I would, like I said, I would have been, I'm fine with talking about it, but it's not the right place for it, in my opinion, at the right time for it. And I do want, we're going to go ahead and close up, but since my last statement, my request, really wasn't going to have a request, and I don't, but our ACA folks, most of them, you know, wisely left about a half hour or 45 minutes ago. And I did want to say that, you know, that I'm a life member of NEA and ACA. I was a building rep. I so appreciate our employees, and I'm guessing that the superintendent and every board member in this dais, all 6 of us, appreciate employees, and so I just wanted to say that speaking for me, and I think I can speak, I know I can speak for all 6, that you have our respect and our thanks. So with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.